so let's bring on our guests. First up, we have Sondsol. How are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good.
Okay, yeah. You want to introduce yourself, tell people where you lie in the political spectrum and where people can find you.
Sure, I'm Sondsol. I do politics and gaming on twitch.tv/Sondsol. I am a left-leaning individual, probably a little bit further left than a social democrat, but maybe not so far left as, say, like a tanky. Not exactly sure exactly where I fall, but that's about where I fall.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Miyo. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. So yeah, you want to introduce yourself and tell people where you lie in the political spectrum?
Sure. Yeah, I would say my most important political priorities are cultural, social conservatism. And other than that, as far as the economics go, it's, whatever serves the interests of the American people is really what I'm most interested in. Whichever way that goes, depending on the specific policies.
Okay, thank you. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Each person can give an opening statement, can be as little as 1 minute, no longer than 5, about the topic and your stance. After that, we will open up the floor. After the debate is over, we will go into the Q&A. If you guys have any questions, tag politically provoked, who your question is addressed to, and we should be able to get to them all. We'll do closing statements and final thoughts after the Q&A. Since this is your ideology, Maya, why don't you get us started with opening statements?
Sure. Sounds good to me. The America First movement, but I think a good place to start with this is, what is America, right? If we're putting America first, what would that be? Well, put simply, I'd say America is a particular people in a particular place, and that's us. We are the Americans, and America is the home of the Americans, as Nick Fuentes famously said. America is one people, one nation on this continent, forged over hundreds of years by shared experiences, descendant from an English cultural framework and the influence of European civilization. And so putting America first means putting the well-being and the interest and the good of the flesh and blood American people in this place first, every time, always, before everything else, and not one single exception. That's a quote from Nick Fuentes. And I think I couldn't sum it up better than that. It's about putting the American people first and, defining the American people. It's the people who are here in America. And it's really that simple.
All right, thank you. Sondsol, what do you think America First is?
America First. So I think that he summed up pretty well what they think America First is, but it seems to me that America First is basically an amalgamation of feels over reals on what they want to see happen in America. So generally speaking, people that are America First, they say that they want to put all Americans first, but they also don't want to increase any kind of immigration that might help with the greater economic achievement of the United States. They don't want to do anything in terms of foreign policy that might help the American people. It seems like really what their ideology boils down to is preserving America as a white nation for white people. Depending on who you're talking to, white might have a different definition. So I guess we're gonna have to get into that. But I don't really see much of a difference between the America First Nick Fuentes groypers and like modern fascist movements or anything like that. It's just different labels for the same thing.
All right, so we can open up the floor.
Yeah. Well, if I can respond to that,
Sure,
I'd say, well, I'm I don't know if I'm surprised or not that before I could even get out of the gate with opening statements, we've already gone into claims of racism and white nationalism. And it's funny how, you can't talk about, putting American families first before big corporations, foreign interests, the ideologies that like socialism and capitalism, these systems, it's putting anything first before the American people. To be able to question that, I think, is important. And it's interesting to me that you can't even begin a discussion about just simply that topic without name calling and slanderous attacks and you know and of course these are with heavily loaded, politically loaded terms, which are trying to get people deplatformed, ban, make it so that we can't have jobs. Everyone noticed Sondsol can freely show his face and advocate for communism right now here, but me being in favor of the American people, that's something I have to be more worried about because of these tactics which they use. So, it's unfortunate that we can't really have good faith discussions about this topic, but I'm looking forward to it either way.
Oh, well, what exactly did you take exception to in my opening statement? That what do you think that I said that was misrepresentative of what you believe? What do you think was just a pure ad hominem attack with no basis?
Well, I mean, the very first thing was that you brought things to a racial perspective when that's I didn't bring anything like that up at all. I may have
Well, the debate
been
is about
happy to get
America
into
first,
culture
right?
with you.
And if I'm going to talk about America first,
so you think that America is inherently there's a racial element to what Americans are? Is that what
we're
you're
talking
saying?
about America first, the political ideology, right?
Yes.
All right.
America
And
first.
if America
someone
first,
this
the
is my
Groiper-esque,
perspective and
right?
political belief system. I just sort
But
of laid out, what
heavily
we believe.
leans
Wait,
on.
hold on one at a time.
Yeah, sorry. It heavily leans on anti-immigration, heavily leans on isolationism, heavily leans on a whole bunch of things that don't actually put the American people first, right? So, in that case, I actually don't think that what you're saying is all that honest whatsoever.
Sure. So what's one way that America First movement wouldn't put Americans first?
Okay, so say for instance, immigration. What's your stance on that? Should we cut all of it out? Should we cut out some of it? Should we only allow immigration from certain areas of the world? What is it?
Oh, yeah. Well, right now, I'd say that we've had so much mass immigration, more than we've ever had in the history of this country by far in the past 60 years, that it's essentially at this point time to cut off the flow, as has always been done in history, in order to uh, give time for an assimilation period for the immigrants who have come in, so that we can all, get this, so they can assimilate to the American culture, and that what America is doesn't fundamentally change. On top of that, the demographic changes that the mass immigration represents. Again, you don't have to be some sort of a white nationalist or a racist in order to acknowledge the fact that a certain group of people, going from 90% of the population to around 40% of the population between 1960 and 2040, is represents a significant change in this nation. And it's not just all change isn't just inherently good, right? So we have
well,
to
all
debate.
change is not also inherently bad.
That's
right?
absolutely true, right? And so we
so really quick,
should
I
be
just
able to
want
talk about whether there are consequences, pros and cons to this.
Yeah, of course, and that's what we're going to do right now. So when we talk about the immigrants need to need time to assimilate, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, if you have immigrants from a foreign country with a foreign culture that they don't speak, the most extreme examples, they don't speak the same language as us, right? If you have someone who comes over from, I don't know, let's say Russia, and they speak Russian rather than English, they're going to have a tough time communicating with people. Let's say we have
So wait, really quick, just on that
people.
point, that point right there, 1 point at a time. So do you think that a person coming here from Russia is able to pass the American citizenship test without speaking English?
I'm not sure what the American citizen test entails entirely, but I would say that speaking English is an integral part of being an American, because that
Sure,
is.
but if
I
they
mean,
can't
this is.
speak English and they can't pass the citizenship test, right?
Sure, I would imagine so. However, there are a lot of people who are coming over here who are getting citizenship who don't speak English. So I'm not sure how that plays out exactly, but it just turns out that way. Now, real quick,
So what
so I
percentage
laid
of
out what I think.
Let
America First means. I'm curious to you what you think American First means.
Well,
If
I've
we're,
already,
if we're
yeah.
coming from the same places, you think that it's basically just a white nationalist thing, and that's all there is to it, and that America First wants to, you know, hurt the American people for some reason, or I'm curious
Well,
what.
I don't know what part do you not understand about my stance on America First, because I've already said what my stance on America First is, and that what my stance on immigration is, right? My stance on immigration is that immigration is a good thing for the American people because it helps us grow our economy bigger. It helps our culture move forward. It helps our population sustain itself. It seems like
When you
there
say
is
the
very
culture moves forward towards where? What do you mean by that?
who knows
Forward
where it
away from
moves.
what our culture used to be?
Well, that's how when you move in one direction, that's what happens with culture. Sure.
So what in your mind makes it so absolute that any changes to our culture would necessarily be good ones?
I didn't say that it would be good or bad. I said that it would move us forward, right? Because
Okay,
culture is
okay.
not something that
So
is
it could be
a
moving us
static
forward
thing,
in a bad direction, right?
right? But you would have to demonstrate that it does.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. So just we both agree then that that mass immigration does come with major cultural changes, which may be good or bad, and that's something that needs to be discussed, right?
Right. That's what we're here to discuss. That's what I'm trying to.
Okay.
That's what
Just
I'm trying to
making
get
sure.
at.
Hey, I'm taking a step by step with you here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure
So
out what our topic is right now.
if we're moving culture forward with immigration, right? What is the goal? What are we moving forward to if we're advocating for mass immigration and more of it?
I don't know exactly what you mean by like what are we moving towards. I don't think that there is a goal with culture to move it towards something. I just think that when we have things like more people in our country that are all able to have different ideas and are all able to engage in the culture, culture inevitably moves forward.
So, I mean, is it just more people no matter what forever? If we have to stack people,
Unless
20
you want
inside of
the
one story,
unless
one.
you want the American population to dip down, then yeah, we're going to want there to be more people in the United States.
Just more forever, 3 billion, 8 trillion in people. Is there no limit on the maximum number of people that you would want in this country, or would you just want to keep moving forward, changing the culture for no
Well, what do
reason
you mean?
that you've
Like
given at all?
even if I was to extend this to what you believe, right? Do you think that we should limit how many human beings are in the United States, even if we had the perfect Groyper world? What do you mean?
Yes.
Oh, so you're in favor of limiting birth rates in the United States in order to maintain a certain number of people in the United States?
Not limiting birth rates, but limiting immigration specifically. You
Well,
can
even
tell
if
over
you
time
no, but
Hold
you
on,
our
said
Sondsol, hold on. Let him finish. Go ahead.
yeah. So our birth rates right now, we're actually not. Most of American demographics are not even meeting their replacement rate. So we're in no danger of having too many people born that our country's population is skyrocketing. Not even close. What's
so.
actually happening is that the American people are dying out, and that this is a decaying, dying population, and we're replacing the dying populations with foreign immigrants. And I don't think that's necessarily the best policy for the American people.
Okay, so you're saying we have a decaying, dying population, and we shouldn't replace it with people that are from outside the country. So, do we allow the United States to just decay into, having 5 people in the country because that's just what the birth rate is?
Oh yeah, no, exactly. So what America First, what we want is to promote families. We want to. I mean, that's one of the first things that you can do is have state propaganda campaigns about instead of women should be in the workforce, everyone should have careers. The propaganda should be about starting families and about how having children is one of the most rewarding things that there is in life. Leaving a legacy behind like that is something that no career can offer you. And I think that if there were, just campaigns, media campaigns that said things like this, that more people would go towards that. And it turns out that I heard Denmark did something like that just recently, and it worked. Their birth rates have risen since then, just off of that alone. So I would advocate for policies which promote American families and
Okay.
promote the health and well-being of American families.
Sure. But even at that, right, if we're talking about here and now, why are you so concerned with the American population as it is right now, increasing its birth rate rather than having people come into the country?
Um, it, okay, well, I think that the answer to that is it seems pretty obvious. Um, the If we let our birth rate get down below its replacement rate, we're a dying civilization. We're a dying population. That's what it is.
Right.
And so allowing that, I don't think that that's a good thing for the American people. You know, if I were in charge and I
Right.
heard,
But
hey,
the question
everyone's
is,
dying out, I wouldn't say, well, we're doing a service to the people that we're in control of.
right, but you're
Right.
going in
And
circles because you're going to answer me that we should just increase the birth rates. But why are you more concerned with increasing the birth rates rather than just allowing people to become naturalized citizens?
oh, and that's what America First is all about. I believe that it's the role of the American state, just like any government from any nation, to put their people first above every other group.
Yeah, but
And
if someone
if there isn't
immigrates
a
here,
group,
they become one of us.
if the people who are already Americans right now are dying out, replacing them as economic units with immigrants is not servicing them. It's not good for the American people,
Why?
right? Well, because they'll be dead and gone. That's not a good thing in my worldview.
So you're saying that by allowing people to come into this country, we're killing the naturalized citizens or the natural born citizens here?
Not at all. No, I'm saying that the people are already dying, and so
Right.
rather than replacing them, the better policy is to increase the population rather than replace it.
That's my argument too, but I say we can do it through immigration, and that's totally a fine thing, and it helps
That
everyone
would be
economic. Well, hold on,
that
and
would
it
be
helps every
replacing.
because I ask you one question, and you go on a 5 minute diatribe. But I say that if we increase immigration, right, or if we keep immigration at the way that it is now, or increase it, right, we increase the available labor pool, we increase the economic output of the United States. That allows for the prices in this country to go down, so that people can afford more goods and more services. They can purchase more commodities, and that leads to a better living environment for everyone involved.
Okay, I have a hypothetical for you. This is something that's not
But
real.
wait, really
It's
quick, before
just-
you give me a
Go
hypothetical, I
ahead.
really want you to answer that question.
Which one?
The question of why would you want to get rid of all immigration and support the increasing the birth rates?
Right.
Because you keep on just saying because I want to
feel
increase
like
the
I've
birth
answered
rates,
this
but
several times.
no,
and
but the
reason
answer that you
is-
give really quick. So the answer that you give is I want to shut down immigration so that I can increase the birth rate of the natural born citizens
Well,
that
those
are
two
already
are
here.
unrelated. Those two are unrelated.
Okay, so
right?
why is bringing immigrants in bad?
Well, because it represents a major demographic change, and it's being brought in as a solution to the population replacement rate problem. And so
Okay.
that's an issue. That the fact that
So,
the people
really quick,
are
one
not
point at a
having
time.
children.
One point at a time, really quick.
Okay.
So demographic change. Why is that a bad thing?
Why is that a bad thing?
Yes.
Well, it represents a major change, first of all, okay? And so you have to acknowledge that any given people don't necessarily, they're living a certain way, and they've been living a certain way for a long time, and it's not necessarily in their best interest to bring a drastic change in one generation, bringing them from 90% of a population to 40% of a population, and expecting like that. There's no problem with that at all. Right. If that's what's happening, I wouldn't say that the American government is doing a service to its citizens and taking care of them.
Wait.
Right. So here's
But
my
you're-
hypothetical. This
Wait,
will help illustrate
But
my point.
you're just like saying vague things, but not actually giving an answer. You're
Okay,
not
sure.
answering why it's a bad thing.
Let
So
me
you're
illustrate
saying,
my point with this hypothetical. Okay.
Okay.
If you heard, this is not real data. This is I'm made up just for a thought experiment. If you heard that African Americans were the state of African American families was so bad right now that in one generation by 2040 there wouldn't be any more. Would you be okay with that and say, well, if we just bring in more immigrants from Poland, well, we don't need the African Americans and we'll have economic benefits anyway? Is that something you'd advocate for?
So you're saying that in one generation, all black people are going to die
In the
out?
thought experiment, hypothetical, yes.
Well, I guess I would have to see what the reason is. Like that this is.
Let's say the reason is they're not starting families and they're not having children anymore.
Well, then, yeah, I wouldn't force anyone to have families, right?
So you would say that the moral action of the American government would be to let them all die out and replace them with Polish people or whatever. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if people did not want to start families, I would not force them to start families.
Well, nobody's talking about forcing anybody to do anything.
Even if we were to take your route, right, and start heavily propagandizing, right, then I would still say, yeah, we can help supplement the population with immigrants, and those immigrants will come in and create a better world or a better country for everyone involved.
Do you think that Polish immigrants who have lived in Poland their entire lives are going to have the same amount of social cohesion with Americans as African Americans do, or any other ethnic group of Americans? Do you think that there will be no social cohesion cost to doing that at all?
In the short term, it seems like there is some form of social cohesion that is
okay. So bringing about,
but however, really quick, right?
Really
because wait, hold on, you don't wait.
Problem.
Why won't you let me finish my answer, my bud? You get to talk so much. All right. So
right.
yeah. So while there is a short term social disruption, right? We don't know in this hypothetical to what degree that is, right? But in the medium to long term, the study is the data is just unequivocally in the favor of multiculturalism, because people have to sit there, they have to learn from each other, and when they learn from each other, they actually bond closer together. So in the medium and long term, yeah, multiculturalism is much better for social cohesion than this homogenous, weird ethno-state that people like to advocate for.
Okay, yeah, so I'm curious about which data you're referring to, which says that multiculturalism is objectively better because people learn from each other.
Sure, give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Let me scroll up right here.
And I'm curious if you believe that has no effect on other factors. Again, like,
well, you
social
asked me about
cohesion.
Right, you asked me about social cohesion, right?
Well, people learning from each other is kind of a different issue than whether people get along.
Well,
right?
the reason, okay, so really quick, I can explain like the thought process that this goes down, right? So basically, and we can see this in the U.S. military, where people in the military, let me see here, people in the military have, on average, more interracial friends, right? So like a white guy will have a Hispanic friend and a black friend and an Asian friend, right? They'll have more friends of more races because they are all having to work together in units because they are all in life or death situations. And so these situations, right, and all these people all being close together for long periods of time leads to them being bonding even stronger than if they, were not together at all.
Okay, so a specific example like the military, where people are forced into conditions where they form, these types of bonds is I would say different from the general population, right? And especially them being forced together, you're kind of making an inherent or an embedded statement about forced integration, which was a government policy, which was incredibly unpopular when it was put into place. You have the school busings, for example.
So forced integration was a bad thing that led to negative long-term consequences for the United States?
There was a lot of social cohesion at the time in the very beginning, at the very least in the short term. We can agree to that.
And now we have
right?
a stronger nation after we realized that having segregation in our country is a morally bad thing. We then forced everyone to integrate, and now we have an even stronger nation because everyone is...
with this is that
but no, your underlying premise is flawed.
Where I'm going with this is too much change too quickly can bring about disaster, even if there would be long-term benefits in the long run, even if it could all work out if we did things incrementally. Taking too many leaps and bounds at once could lead to disaster, given that there are short-term negative effects, right?
Sure, but you would have to demonstrate that the way that we go through our immigration policy now leads to substantial enough social cohesion disruption that we should shut it all down and let everyone all integrate together now, right? You're presupposing that there's already such big problems that because of racial integration that we should shut all immigration down.
Okay, so quick question for you. Would you say that racial tensions in America are better or worse than in 1980?
Are these
No, just
tensions?
off the top of your head. Just off the top of your head, off of
in the 1980s?
What's going on? Yeah.
1980s, I would say
2000s is better or worse?
In the 1980s, yeah, that's a bad decade for you to choose, buddy, because racial tensions were pretty fucking bad then.
It's worse than now.
I don't know. I wasn't alive during the 80s, but I am alive now, and I was alive during the 2000s. They're probably not as bad as the 2000s, but during the 2010s through now, yeah, they've been pretty bad, right? And even then, the argument that you're putting forward here has no merit because you're talking about the African American community in terms of Black Lives Matter, who are not immigrants. These are people that have lived here for a very, very long time. They have had adequate time to not only assimilate into our culture, but to affect it over the long term by contributing to our culture through music and food and art and sport and all of these different things. Right? So this is a completely stupid argument for you to bring up.
Allowing this population to die out and replacing them with immigrants from other countries, with foreigners, would probably not be in their best interest or the American people, the rest of the American people's best interest, right?
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? Are you appealing to your ultra unlikely hypothetical in order to make the point that our country is in shambles right now?
Well, so I mean, yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm doing because
Okay.
it turns out that there are demographics of Americans.
So are black people dying out in the U.S. right now?
Low. No, white people are actually. It's just it doesn't matter what race the people are that are dying out. It's any American ethnic group of people who have been here and contributed to the culture and assimilated, like you've talked about for generations. You just discussed how important that was.
Well, I didn't discuss how important it was. I'm saying that you're not arguing. Hold on, really quick, right? You're making arguments that don't logically follow whatsoever. That's what I'm pointing out. I'm not saying whether these things are necessarily good or bad, or that they're even worth considering in terms of what we're talking about right now. You're making disconnected points, right?
Not exactly. So here's what I'll connect the points for you.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So it turns out white Americans and Black Americans are both under their replacement rates right now. So given enough time, they will die out if something doesn't change, right?
Okay.
Okay. And so I would assert that that's a bad thing.
I mean, possibly, yeah.
Okay, cool. And so I would also assert, following from that, building off of that enacting programs to stop that bad thing from happening would be better than finding another economic solution to the problem.
Right, like immigration is a good way to make sure.
Economic solution to the problem.
It is both an economic solution and it's also a solution to the declining birth rate. Yeah.
So how is bringing in immigrants from another country a solution to the declining birth rate of African Americans or white Americans?
Because we have a falling population.
Oh, right, but that doesn't help those demographics that we're talking about right now.
Yes, it does, because when we're talking about the benefits of immigration, it's just wholly economically sound. It helps every single group of people in the United States out.
So it's funny that you say that because actually it doesn't. Most of the benefits accrued actually go to the capital and the immigrants themselves at the cost of the native or the working class Americans who have already been here.
In what way?
So that's, so essentially, there's I'll get a study for you. I know you guys love
I'm ready for it, buddy.
Yeah, there's a study by George Borjas.
Okay.
It's called it's called Immigration and Economic Growth. And on page...
Before we go any further, before you embarrass yourself, all right?
Sure.
What was Borjas's conclusion?
Borjas's conclusion, there were a couple conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
But the conclusion right here, which I'm discussing in page 14 and 15 of the paper...
Wait, why are you not going to take all of his conclusions, all of the findings? Why are you going to pick one of the conclusions?
Is there a reason why you're scared of hearing a sentence from this study?
Oh no, I'm just wondering if you actually know what it is.
I'm wondering why you're filibustering here on a study which you've asked for the data from.
Yeah, go ahead, read it.
Okay, okay, good. Just making sure we're on
Also,
the same.
can you link it?
Yeah.
Cool.
There it is. It'll be on the last paragraph on page 14 and the beginning of page 15. Figure 2 shows that immigration redistributes income from labor to capital. Native-born workers lose about 2.9% of GDP, while native-owned capital gains about 3.2% of GDP. So the 19.5 trillion GDP implies that the workers lose 567 billion, while employers gain 623 billion. The small surplus of 56 billion masks a sizable redistribution from workers to the users of immigrant labor. And then it goes on to get into more numbers, and it says that almost all of this increase of the immigration surplus goes to the immigrants themselves as payments for their services. So even on an economic level, this is not better for the Native American population, the people who are already here. So essentially what you're saying is that the people who are here are dying out and you're okay with that, replacing them. They're losing money and you're okay with that, replacing them. And then you're helping the capital, which I would think as a socialist you'd be against, and you're helping the foreign immigrants who are coming here and replacing
really quick,
the populations who are dying out.
I love how you're really moralizing all of this. Very fun, very, very cool. But this is the fun part. Like one paragraph later, right? There's this sentence. In the end, immigration does not alter the price of labor or the returns to capital, and natives neither gain nor lose from immigration. In the long run, the immigration surplus must be zero. So even your dunk argument study. Hold on. I let you talk. Even in the end, even your dunk data that you just throwed at me, right? Borjas himself does not think that immigration is a bad thing. In fact, the findings that Borjas finds is that while it's there are some amounts of loss for the high school dropout education level of the native-born workers, it's something like 2%. But this can be rectified, even Borjas says, through social programs, which could be paid into by, immigrants coming into the country, helping by increasing the economic productivity of the country and paying into the tax system and, helping out those workers. And this 2% loss in income, it doesn't last long term.
Yeah, and so that's what you were talking about, this dunk, which you were talking about. I read the rest of that paragraph, which you conveniently left out. And it even gets into it. And it gets into it in the abstract in the very beginning, and it says that this will, in a long-term effect, things eventually seem to level out in terms of the price of labor and the effects. However, on a short-term basis, there are negative effects to the, actually it says the long-term effects still have to be measured, and there are so many factors it's difficult to even figure out.
So
however, the short-term effects, However, the short-term effects are definite, and it's what I said. And he wouldn't have put it in the study if it wasn't true.
Right, and the short-term effects, I concede, right? Even like this is the hold on really quick. This is the study really quick. Yeah. This is the study that people that are anti-immigration point towards for their dunk.
And there's a reason for that.
Right, there is a reason for it because this is the most anti-immigration economic argument that you can find, and even the most anti-economic or anti-immigration
I don't
economic paper that you can
understand why
find shows that there's barely any damage to the native population in terms of their income, right? And
so this
they
is why we're
concede
not
in
against
that
immigration altogether.
same study that it can be rectified simply with just a little bit of social programs that will be paid into by the immigrant class. Yes.
That's not what it says at all. What it says is that in the long term, in the very long term, and we're talking decades here. Okay,
Right, he's
in the
talking.
long term,
right. No,
we have things could level out. However, when you have mass immigration at such a high level like we have now,
we're not. Wait, hold on. You're jumping. You're jumping all over the place, buddy. One thing at a time.
How is that a jump? We went from immigration to mass immigration. How is that a
you're
jump?
jumping from the economic argument.
Trouble here?
Right? We're talking about immigration. Does it damage the native population? Does it or does it not?
In the short term, yes.
Okay. And what's the next part of that?
The next part of that is that if we have mass immigration in the short term, the effects are drastically bad. You see how that's...
Wait,
am I jumping?
where does it say that?
Well, it's extrapolating the point from the principle.
Oh, so you actually have no data that shows that this would be the case. You're just
the data says that exactly. There are mathematical equations in here which prove what he says, which is that in the short term, the more immigration you have, the more that the money is moved from labor to capital, and the more that the native-born workers lose out, and that the immigrants and the capital, the corporations gain. And so the more it logically follows that the more immigration you have, the more drastic these effects are. Obviously.
All right.
And so if you have too much immigration,
you're appealing to something that's not happening. So why are you worried about this?
I'm appealing to something that's been happening for the past 60 years. That's exactly our point. We've had 60 million immigrants in the past 60 years. There's only like 340 million people.
Our immigrant population is the amount of people that are immigrating into the United States is going down.
Well, and that's great, and you know what we want that to go down.
So why are you saying that it's going up? That we have like hundreds of millions of people that are coming into this country all the fucking time.
For the past 20 years or so, at least, an average of over 1 million immigrants per year entering this country, and that's just legally. Okay. We've had 60 million immigrants in the past 60 years in America. That's a lot for a population of 340 million. That's a significant percentage of foreign
1 million. Wait, hold on, really quick. Can you say that again?
It's around 1 million per year.
A million like per year. What percent of the population?
I don't. So do we have to do the math here? Let me pull up a calculator. Because 60 million people out of 240 million people.
Wait, I thought that you said 1 million per year.
340. Yes, 60 million in the past 60 years, roughly.
Okay, and
that's a lot.
So if we have 350 or 360 million people, right? That's less than 1% added to the native population every single year.
Okay, and added up.
Why is this? How is this mass? Wait, hold on. How is this mass immigration?
25% of the population over 60 years. That is a significant change in one generation, man. Would you dispute that? That 25% of the population changing who it is from people to different countries with completely different cultures, who a lot of them don't even speak English. You would say that there's nothing.
If we've replaced 25% of our population with people that don't speak English, can you demonstrate to me that that's something that we have in the United States right now?
No, I would say that a lot of the immigrants are not speaking English, and you can tell.
Okay, what is a lot?
Into their own communities.
No, hold on. What is a lot?
Are you denying that this is a phenomenon?
I don't. If it's something that happens, I don't think that the amount of people that are coming into this country that don't speak English are as large a number as you are trying to make it out to be. No.
Okay, so fine. We'll drop that point since I don't have data on that. I thought
so we're going to drop the point that the social cohesion that we would lose. Hold on, really quick. I just want to make this clear. We're dropping the point that because people don't speak English, right? We're not going to use that in terms of any kind of social cohesion, all right, going forward.
Well, no, not exactly, because the
wait,
fact
now
is
we are going to
there
use it.
People coming here who don't speak English, right, and that represents a problem. And I would say that speaking English should be a prerequisite for being a citizen here. And that one of the first things that you learn in international relations class is that one of the most core and fundamental parts of what being a nation
Hey,
is.
I don't disagree with that. I think that it would be nice for everyone to speak the same language in our
Not
country,
just
right?
nice,
No,
required.
I don't know about required. It would probably
For a
be something
nation?
that I would have to think about if we wanted to make that a rule. But
Sure,
at the
what's a
same
nation
time,
then?
right? We also
What's a
don't see
nation?
that our current immigration system is allowing so many people into our country that don't speak English, that it is a problem that is in any way damaging our society.
There's a social cohesion aspect to it and cultural changes which are not insignificant.
Right, but you keep on like alluding to this vague sense of people not speaking English and being so outside of the culture that they can't assimilate whatsoever. But in order for people to
It's not
join
that
this,
they can't assimilate. It's not that they can't assimilate. It's
Mm-hmm.
that they have a different culture they were raised with, right? It's if you take in somebody from China or Somalia or Peru or Poland or Russia, and you
Mm-hmm.
bring them into America, they're not just eating apple pie and whistling Dixie, right?
why not?
Is that something you dispute?
I'm asking
Think
you.
that you can take someone from anywhere and they all automatically have our culture?
I think that anyone that we bring into America and they get naturalized as a citizen, they become an American.
So you think that legal documents are the only thing which make up a nation?
They are the only thing that makes up. Well, let me think about that. Are legal documents the only thing that make up the people of a nation?
I'm sorry?
Do you not recognize the fact that in order to gain citizenship, you have to pass a citizenship test, and that is showing that you share the same values as we do?
Oh, sure.
In terms
And
of democracy, in terms of
absolutely,
liberty.
that has nothing to do with the same values. No, absolutely not.
Then
Especially
I don't
when you
care
talk
about whatever
things like
cultural things that they
amnesty.
bring in. If they're not changing our core values of liberty and equality
They are
and
changing
democracy.
those are not their core values.
Wait, but you
man.
said that they wait. But I already said,
We're
and you
taking in people
agreed.
from
Wait, you
cultures that
agreed.
don't have core values of liberty.
But wait,
Wait.
you agreed with me that in order to get to become a naturalized citizen, you have to pass a citizenship test, and that is a test to show that you share the same values as us.
Sure, that's the legal documents, but I'm talking about what a nation is and what a culture,
Right.
what a people are. And you're saying, well, as long as they share all our core values, they don't, man. We're taking in people from cultures that are completely different from us.
But you're agreeing with me that in order for them to gain citizenship and become a naturalized citizen, they have to pass this test, and that shows that they have the same
According
core
to the
values
current immigration policies, which we're advocating for changing. Yes.
So why do we care if they wait? So wait, do they
Exactly
do
my
okay,
point.
really quick. This just yes or no. Do they or do they not share the same core values as us?
No. Well, I mean, it depends on where they come from, but pretty much nobody does.
Then how do they
Americans
pass
are a
in that
specific
case?
group
Then
of
how do
people.
they pass the American citizenship test?
Because a lot of the questions on those tests are facts and logic. They're like, who were the presidents? It's trivia questions, man. It's who are the presidents? What are the laws? What can you do and not do in this country? Things like that. That doesn't mean that they're all eating apple pie again and whistling Dixie. It's not that simple. Especially
Wait a
when you talk
second.
about the cases of amnesty, which is something I'd really like you to address because
If they
they're not
accept
taking
if they
credit
accept
for
what
that.
the laws are and they know what
They're
the
just making
laws are.
people citizens because they
Wait, hold
walked
on,
across
hold on,
the
hold
border.
on. So you're saying
They don't have our values. They don't pursue freedom and liberty and all of that. They come from governments and places where they don't have freedom of religion. Is that something you're okay with?
wait, if they don't
they
have
get
freedom of
control of our
religion,
government because
right?
they
How are
become
they
the
going to
majority
enact that
demographic?
here?
Hold on, Miles. Go ahead.
What's that?
That's
If they
okay.
don't have freedom of religion,
Yeah,
what?
if they don't have freedom in their country, right, and they don't value freedom in their country, number one, how do you know that they don't value freedom in their country if their government is the one that is imposing some kind of lack of freedom onto them? Number two,
Who's the
how are they
government made of?
Huh?
Who's the government made of? The people there.
Do you think that every single country in the entire world has the same form of government as us?
No, not at all. What I'm
Then
saying
why
is
are you
that
asking me that question?
well, generally speaking, there's the government rules at the consent of the governed. And you see time and time again throughout history that when those fall out of line, a revolution happens, and that happens pretty much in every single case. And so it can be stated pretty solidly that a government is generally speaking,
wait, really
except
quick.
in those crazy times, representative
What
of the
crazy
core values
times?
of the people. It could those times of upheaval and revolution, which I
Okay,
just
so if there's people that flee an authoritarian regime, right? Are they inherently authoritarian? Why wouldn't they just stay in their country if they like the authoritarianism?
Well, it's funny because it turns out that most of the immigrants aren't leaving for ideological political reasons like this, especially from
Well,
the
it
third
might be
world.
because they're
They
being
don't have
oppressed because they don't have freedom, right? Which
It's
they
not
wouldn't
even
like.
necessarily about oppression or freedom or anything like that. It's about economic prosperity. These people want they want economic benefits for themselves, which they see in America, obviously.
Right, because
And
we're
you
the
can't
most
fault it.
powerful nation that the world has ever
Right,
seen.
and you can't fault them for that, for wanting economic benefits for themselves.
Right, and
At
when
the
they
same
come here,
time,
they
they're
increase
not.
everyone else's.
At the same time, these people are not coming here and leaving all their values behind, and they're leaving behind all their cultural and all of their political beliefs and anything like that. All they're doing is coming here and saying, "Well, I can make money here," and they're bringing all the rest with them. That's what's happening. They're not fleeing from political regime, largely, by and large, they're not fleeing because they, oh well, this country doesn't have, this political thing which I want, and so I'm going to go to America and vote for that. They don't think like that. This is not how third world immigrants operate. A lot of them
Question. So
haven't
when we
read
had
books.
when we had
They just
large
want to
waves
work.
of immigration in the past, right? Did our government change into the Irish government?
No, and that's
Did
because we didn't have
wait,
mass
hold on.
immigration. We
Did
didn't have
our
mass immigration.
that
It's a
was
totally
massive
different
immigration
example.
for that time. Yeah.
And it wasn't even it wasn't even close to the same percentage. It's not 25% of the population in
No, no,
one
no. But you're
generation.
talking about
Not at
over.
all.
No, you're talking about 60% or 60 million people over 60 million years. We're talking about huge numbers of people from all in one area, right? So if the Irish immigrants came over here and they didn't change our government into the Irish government, right? And they didn't give us a potato famine. If the Italians that came over didn't change us into the Italian government, right? So what single country is coming over here and is giving us so many people that they're going to structurally change the United States away from having the core values of liberty, equality, democracy?
Yeah. So, well, I would say our largest centers of immigration, where they're coming from right now, are Asia and South America, and then Africa. And again, looking at the charts, looking at the studies, I'm not seeing anything like a demographic change like you're trying to characterize the Irish coming to America as here. It's not even close to the mass immigration that's happened today.
Uh,
Like all together for an assimilation period, which is what we're advocating for. And I don't understand why that's such an issue to you.
I don't
I'm
understand.
curious why you
No,
think an assimilation period is such a problem.
because I don't think I don't value that being anything that is worth our time. Why would I
Well,
damage the
you
wait,
just
hold on,
cited
really
the
quick.
example of
Really
the
quick.
Irish.
Really quick.
Go ahead.
All right. Why would I damage the US economy? Why would I impose higher prices and worse work conditions on our native population simply because of the perception that perhaps we need to spend a little bit more time integrating people into our society when it hasn't been demonstrated that it is actually damaging our society in the first place?
Yeah, so I would say that the economic benefits are not the only thing to be taken into account.
Okay, right? And that's
It's
why I keep
it's
on asking you over and over and over, what is the damage to our society from massive immigration, even from this
Sure.
mass immigration, even from let's even stick to the kind of it that you can actually have data on, right? The immigration that we've received over the past 60 years. What cultural damage have we received from these people that has been outweighed by the economic benefit?
Sure. Well, here's a small, more localized example. Have you seen the recent waves of immigrants coming from California to Texas?
Yes, I live in Texas.
Okay, cool. So you recognize that the immigrants coming just even from California, which is even within our nation, they're voting, they're bringing their cultural values with them to Texas and voting that way and bringing a major change
But
electorally
those
and
aren't
demographically, right?
immigrants.
Well, I mean, again, it's state to state immigrants. I'm
It's
using the term loosely.
it's interstate migration, and even at
Sure,
that, the
sure.
amount of Californians that are coming over to Texas aren't changing this state from red into fucking blue. It's other fucking demographic changes. Next example, all right,
However,
buddy, because this is you
so
don't know what you're
next
talking about
example would
there.
be California used to be a solid red state. Reagan won it 5 or 6 times. Nixon won it 5 or 6 times, and the demographic change from the Latin American population turned it into such a solidly blue state that it's never going to turn red again. And the same
Wait,
thing is now happening with
New
Virginia.
York
You
used to
can
be a
look up.
swing state. Was it all of the Mexican
That's okay.
immigrants that?
I'm specifically talking about California right now and
So
Virginia as
the
well.
change in political ideology is a symbol of people ruining our culture.
Well, I wouldn't say ruining. I would say it
Then why do we
represents
care?
a change. It represents a major change, which the people who were here before didn't want because they're not voting for it.
Can you
Right.
demonstrate for me that the only reason that California was blue was because of immigration?
Sure.
And even if it was immigration, right? These people were American citizens. Would you deny them their right to vote?
How do foreigners have a right?
They're not foreigners. They're naturalized citizens of the United States.
Oh, the immigrants who are already here. I'm not trying to deny anybody who's already here anything. We're
Then
trying
why
to
are we
stop
even
taking
talking
in
about
more
this?
people. We're trying to stop taking in more people so that they'll already be here and we don't take rights away.
So what
That's
what you're arguing for here is that we should not bring in citizens from, or we shouldn't bring in any immigrants from other places in the world because they might vote against the political party that you want. That seems like it's a little bit agenda based, buddy.
It's not about the political party. It's about that the people who are
Why do we care?
the people who are already
You can't demonstrate because these
So
parties that they're
am I
voting
allowed
for.
to answer your question, or are you going to answer it for yourself?
I'm trying to demonstrate
Answer
to
the
you
question
why.
yourself.
No, I'm going to answer. I'm going to like tell you why I don't understand. Right?
Okay.
Okay, because these are political parties that are already in the United States, right? And if people want to come over into the United States, and they all decided to vote for one party or the other, right? These people they gained their citizenship, they gained their right to vote, right? That party was already in the United States, so why do you care?
Sure. Are you aware that there are, nationalist and fascist parties in a lot of countries that exist already in our political parties? What if there was a mass wave of immigrants who wanted a nationalist, fascist, or monarchist movement, and all of a sudden they made that the New Deal in a country just by becoming the majority of the people? Is that something you'd be okay with? And then the native population doesn't want fascism. They're against it. They would vote against it, but they're outnumbered now because of immigration. Is that something you'd support?
I'm confused. Are you saying that in your hypothetical, there is a group of people that all immigrate to the United States all at once with so many numbers that they effectively create a voting bloc that is so unbelievably powerful that it outvotes everyone that was already in the United States?
Sure, yeah. Let's say that China decides to send as many immigrants as they possibly can to America, or Russia. Let's take Russia and call them fascists. I don't know, just for hypothetical. And they want to send, as a part of their campaign, as many people here to change the votes as they can for a system which they would like better. See how that could present a problem to the people who are already here and voting certain ways?
How? That could present a problem. That could present a problem, but you're not demonstrating to me how our immigration policy now is doing that.
It's because the people who are immigrating from Latin America specifically are all voting in one direction, and that's why
You
all
realize
the immigration
that the
policies
people
geared
that are
towards
coming
those
here.
people.
You realize that the people that are coming here from south of the border are incredibly conservative people, and they would probably vote with the Republican Party if the Republican Party wasn't so virulently racist towards them.
I'm not sure that's the case at all. And then
100%.
See, I wouldn't call the Republican Party racist at all. You've got
I mean,
all
we
the
can agree to
mainstream
disagree, but
Republicans
the way
saying that
that
the Democrats are the real racists, and all of that stuff. It's
I
everybody's
mean, even
fighting
if we
over
were to
who the
go
racists are.
even if we were to go past that, why would a population of people that are all incredibly conservative that probably would vote for the Republican Party, right? Why would they vote
By what
against their
metric would you
interests?
say they would vote for the Republican Party?
Because they're conservative. They're socially conservative.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I would say, even regardless, I would say it is not up to the American people who are already here to pander to foreigners for their votes in order to retain political control over their own nation.
If a political party wants to pander to any group of people, that's their right.
Foreigners. To foreigners. So you're
Not
saying
to foreigners, to immigrants.
Well, no, that's well, I mean, again, immigrants are foreigners until they're legalized, right?
Right, but they can't vote until they're naturalized. So what does this argument matter?
As foreigners, and then you give them all amnesty, and then say they're immigrants. That's the game? Is that what we're doing here?
I'm sorry.
Can
you say that again? Wait,
so
it
people
again.
come in as foreigners, and then they're given amnesty, and then they're all citizens. And you say, well, you can't take their rights away, and you just aren't pandering to them well enough. And it's to the people who were already here, to the African American community, the white American community, the Hispanic American community. A lot of these people, they see these changes happening, and they see that this is what's happening, and they say, you know what, that's enough of that.
I really like this public that you're constructing here, this false public that you're constructing, this hypothetical world, right? But again, number one, if we were to hold on, I keep on asking you over and over and over. You have not answered this question whatsoever. What about our current policy that we've had for the past 60 years, right? What about our immigration policy has can be proven to have damaged our society? You keep on appealing to something that might happen possibly in the future in some hypothetical world. I'm asking you concretely right now, what about our immigration policy has harmed the United States?
Yeah, I would say that if you look at the racial tensions in the United States,
but those racial tensions are between people that have been here for much longer than any amount of time that then would be adequate for them to assimilate into our culture. It's not cultural differences there that is the problem for the racial tensions.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, so that's something that I would largely dispute as well, just because racial tensions between all of the groups are higher right now and escalated. However, the bigger issue is the demographic replacement of the native-born Americans, the people who are already here, black, white, Hispanic, whatever. But
you haven't demonstrated why that's a bad thing either. You keep on.
Okay. So that's
it's
so
recursive.
Where we're at,
you're going in circles, buddy. Ouroboros.
No. This is actually really good. So where we've landed now is that you don't believe that it's bad for the native-born Americans, the multi-generational Americans, to die out and be replaced. Would you agree with that? You don't think that's bad?
That's pretty nice.
If people don't want to get into relationships and fuck and have children, I don't care. That's up to them. That is their human right to do.
This is the question you haven't answered several times. Do you think that that's bad or not? Or
no.
Good? Is it good or bad?
It's morally neutral. It's neutral.
Okay, see, this is and just for the audience's sake, this is what America First is all about. We care about American families. We care about the American people. We don't want you to die out. We want you to have families and children and to be happy and to continue your nation prosperously. Even if there's a certain percentage of economic hit to the GDP, to preserve your families and your people, that's what the America First movement cares about. And it seems like my opponent here, Sondsol, he doesn't really
saying they're
care
going to
about
die
that.
out as if people are going to kill them.
No. They're going to die out as in they're not going to exist anymore by virtue of the fact simply.
You don't know that. You're assuming that based off of current trends, but you don't know if that's definitely going to happen.
Sure. So if nothing changes, that's what'll happen. How
If
about that?
nothing changes is
nothing
doing a
changes.
lot of legwork for your argument there. You realize that,
Well,
right?
that's why we're
your
advocating
entire
for
argument, your
change.
entire argument
That's
hinges
why
on
we're
the fact
advocating
that
for change.
given current trends, the American population that is natural, that has been here for generations, is like possibly going to die out, and therefore we have to cease all immigration and propagandize everyone to fuck so that we can maintain our population, instead of simply just saying,
Well, I would
hey,
reject
we
that
can do both of these things at
categorization of
once.
it.
Maybe on one hand, we tell people, hey, maybe having a family is a good thing and incentivizing that while not fucking ourselves economically and accepting people from other countries into our nation. This great melting pot that we call America.
Yeah. Again, I would
Why
say
can't we do
that-
both?
that-
How about that? Can we meet in the middle there? Can we do both?
Well, I would say that's definitely a step in the right direction. If we can, at the very least, begin promoting, if we can agree to promote families and children for the native-born Americans who are already here, that would represent a significant step forward in this conversation. If
I'm
that's
sorry.
something
Can you say
all
that?
agree on.
I'm sorry. I was looking at something on my notes here. Can you repeat that last part again?
Yeah, I'd say that's something that we could probably agree on, that at the very least, that would be moving the ball forward in the right direction, not moving forward in a general direction, which we won't say is good or bad. It's moving in the right direction to promote families, to promote children for the American people who are already here so that they don't end up dying out. We need to bring about some change in order for what I said to not take place, correct?
Sure, right, but you haven't adequately expressed why it has to be anti-immigration. All right.
Yeah, and so the reason for that is because the wages, especially in the short term, would skyrocket if we didn't have mass immigration happening right
Why
now.
is that a good thing?
And so to continue to expand infinitely, why are wages rising for the American working class a good thing? I think anyone listening can answer that question.
Yeah,
for
that in
themselves.
isolation sounds really great, right? But what does that mean? If it's due to a lack of labor as a resource,
It's not a lack of labor. It's not a lack
that's
of labor.
literally
So this is
what it
actually-
is.
I don't-
If
I
the
don't know how this
hold on.
became
What you said was just so incredibly fucking
This
stupid.
used to
I
be a
can't let it
corporate
fly. All right,
talking-
I'm going to
Okay,
go
go
ahead
ahead.
and talk now. All right, because if you're implying that the only way for us to in the short term help people's wages increase is to make sure that we have less people in this country coming in, so that
Didn't say the only
natural
way.
born, what you were implying, right?
That was
So-
a way.
Huh?
I said it was a way.
A way, right? But you're implying that this thing would be a good thing. But you're looking at just the wages increasing in isolation is incredibly fucking stupid. Because just because there are increases in wages doesn't mean that down the supply chain that the prices aren't going to skyrocket along with them.
Yeah, it's so you're absolutely right. You know, the price of tomatoes would rise if people weren't only getting paid 25 cents an hour to pick them.
Nobody's
So,
getting
yeah,
paid 25 cents an
I would
hour.
advocate for that.
Outside of illegal immigrants, who, if we
All right,
were to
that's fair.
get them,
Well, six
and
bucks
if we
an
give
hour,
them
whatever you
amnesty,
wanna
then they would be
call
able to
it.
pay into the tax system, huh?
You know, $6 an hour, whatever you would want to call it.
What is the minimum wage in the United States?
But 720, I don't know, man. Whatever it is.
725. All right. I just
Whatever
want to
it
make
is,
sure you knew
the
that.
wages would be higher, okay?
Right, and then it would raise
Wait,
the
but-
price of tomatoes or of any of these different commodities, whether it's tomatoes
And
or
that's
whether
what
it's
I'm
milk
saying.
or a bag of bread.
Americans being paid a living wage is more important than the prices of commodity goods, man.
If you can't afford those things after your wages increase, then it's useless.
You can't afford them without a living wage in the first place, man. I don't
So
know
that's
how.
why we
I'm
should
talking
try to
a
fix
leftist
our
who's
economy,
arguing
right? By
against,
increasing
higher
immigration and make
wages
sure we
right
have
now.
more labor in our country as a resource.
I just have to say, it's really fascinating to me that, you know, when I was growing up, it was the left was very obviously the party of the working class. And now
I'm for the
I'm
working
talking
class.
to a leftist, you know, self-proclaimed socialist or communist who's to essentially saying
I
that
did not
wages
say I was a
rising would be
communist.
bad
Hold your
thing.
horses there, buddy.
All right,
I
socialist.
I understand what you're saying,
that-
right?
that's-
That the
you know,
idea that
wages
I'm saying that
rising would be
wages
bad.
possibly rising could be bad. Oh my gosh! But if I made it to where the minimum wage in this country was $20 an hour, but it increased prices 500%, right? And it didn't help anybody, right? And they were spending all of their money on the exact same things. Just because they're making $20 an hour doesn't mean that we're increasing their quality of life whatsoever. right?
Okay, so for the record, you're against raising the minimum wage?
Minimum wage is a whole other conversation.
Well, not exactly, because what we're talking about is raising the wages through supply and demand. It's exactly the same conversation. So I don't know why you would be
No,
against raising wages in the first place. This is very confusing to me talking to
minimum
a
wage is one of those things that is a stopgap in terms of making sure that people get paid well. I like the idea of unionizing people so that they can argue for their wages way more, right? And increasing social spending such that people are able to be taken care of, whether their pay is $7.25 an hour or $25 an hour.
Okay. So I'd just like to hear your take on this, on the immigration wages issue. How would you say supply and demand would affect, immigration versus wages?
I'm sorry, supply and demand in terms of immigration.
Yeah, in terms of the working population versus wages for jobs.
Right. So, I mean, this is like as simply as I can put it. If there's more labor, people can hire people, right?
And they're
And
paid less, right?
well,
If there's
right,
more
but that
labor.
does right. But
Okay.
you're looking at that one part of the equation in isolation and not thinking about how that could decrease the price of commodities, such that if they like say we were able to like get rid of the minimum wage, right? And then we reduce the we get rid of the minimum wage,
is an
and then
interesting-
people like get into this country, and everyone's getting paid 25 cents an hour. But our economic output is such that it costs like a quarter of a cent for rent every month because everyone is able to is so economically productive.
So
Would that be a bad thing?
we're pro 25 cents an hour minimum wage
No,
now
I'm giving
on
you
the
an
left?
extreme hypothetical to see if you understand anything about economics.
Well, it sounds like you've just inverted the entire thing to now say that lowering the wages is what's better, right?
No, I was giving you a hypothetical in which if
Well,
people were paid less, but the
you're
price of no,
hypothetical.
hold on,
Okay,
chill.
okay,
all right?
sorry.
Listen.
I think I get you.
Okay, can you explain it back to me?
Yeah,
Just to
yeah.
make sure.
I think I get you. If there was a hypothetical where we lowered the wages and it reduced the cost of commodities, you'd argue that's a net good. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but of course it would have to be proportional to a degree. It would have to make sure
Right.
that the price of goods is falling faster than people's wages.
Okay, yeah. So if that's how the math worked out, then I would say that decreasing wages would be the best thing ever, right? Let's pay everybody nothing essentially, and everything can be free.
Right, but that's
But
the
it just
entire
turns
thing
out
about
that's not
economics
how
that
things
you're
play out.
ignoring, right? Is that just because you're just saying just because we increase people's wages, that's a good thing, but it might cause inflation like 6,000%, and even though people are getting a 50% increase in their wages, right? Say we go from 7.25, right, to a $11 an hour minimum wage, but then prices go up 6,000%, right? Do you think that's helping anybody?
Well, so I'll give you a counter hypothetical. If wages increase for people, consumer prices can also go down if consumer spending goes up, right?
It's possible, right? But you would still have to demonstrate why that would happen in this hypothetical world that you're saying that our consumer prices would go down without any kind of labor.
Well, because of supply and demand, the consumer prices would go down
Because of
because
supply and
there are
demand?
more people buying things.
Well, who would be
Yeah, it
producing the
means
goods? That's the problem. If everyone's buying everything up, the demand is up, but the supply is low, so the prices would go up because there's no labor to fill in the gap to create more supply.
the labor is. I mean, what?
So
Can
you don't
repeat
have
that
enough
again?
labor to create supply for the demand that is now increased because people have more spending power, right? Thus, prices go up.
No.
Why did you get into a conversation about basic supply and demand if you don't know how to do basic addition and subtraction?
Yeah, but what you said is just patently false.
How?
Because we have the supply of labor in this scenario.
Why?
It's because we're not, because we have the labor already here in America. We have the people already here. It's not like we need to bring in immigrants in order to get the labor. It's just it is. We do have labor. We have the people who are willing to work.
What is
We
the
just need to
structural?
pay them.
What do you think that the unemployment rate is showing? Not right now, because obviously we're in like a weird place because of coronavirus, right? But if we were to look at like, say, 2015, do you think that we have so much labor available to us that we just need to shut down immigration?
Yeah, I would say that relatively
With our like
the
what,
unemployment
like
rate
4 or
is has been
5%?
relatively low, regardless, excluding right now crazy circumstances.
Yeah.
I'd say that the unemployment rate is relatively low, and that it's bringing in mass immigration, which is distorting the wages, disrupting the
Wait.
economics in the short term,
Wait.
changing the
You're
culture,
jumping. You're
changing
jumping ahead.
the
I need you to
demographics.
answer that question. Hold on. You're
Okay.
jumping ahead. All right. So the unemployment rate is low, which means there's not a lot of people that are outside of the workforce. So you're saying that we do have the labor for our workforce for us to shut off immigration completely, even though we've had generally stable unemployment over the past 60 years, right?
Okay.
And so your argument is that we have so much unemployment, so much labor at our disposal that we could shut off immigration and it be fine for our economy. But we don't, because the unemployment rate has been around the same place for a very long time. We haven't had a Great Depression where there's like 25% of the population that is out of the workforce.
I'm not sure what you're saying exactly. It seems
What I'm
like you're
saying is,
arguing my
you
point.
are incredibly fucking stupid.
Oh,
Like, I
thanks,
don't
man.
know
Glad we're having
how
such a
much
simple
easier I can
conversation.
explain this. There's less people than you think
know,
there
it's
are
funny,
that are
when I
available.
called
No, hold
from
on
the
really
outset
quick.
of this
You keep on
conversation
saying,
that
you keep
brought
on
up-
going around in circles, so this is incredibly boring. You keep on saying
calling
things
us
like,
racist,
we have
stupid
enough
white
people. Hold on
You've
really
been
quick.
doing this since the
I
very
didn't say
beginning.
anything about racism right
I
here.
have no obligation to listen to you sit here and insult me when I've been absolutely civil with you the entire time.
No,
I've
you have been
absolutely,
insulting me by going around in the same arguments over and over and over and over and not understanding a goddamn thing about what you're talking about. This is
I
incredibly
think everyone
fucking...
can see who's bringing facts and data here, and who's arguing in the
Yeah, the guy that doesn't know
interest of
Basic
the
Addition
American
threw
people,
one link at
and
me
who's
and
bringing
didn't know.
personal attacks
The guy that had
humanity
one
in this
link to throw at
conversation.
me that with a study that didn't actually support your argument is the guy that
Actually,
knows
it
what
did.
he's talking about. Sure.
It actually exactly supported my argument, because what I'm talking about is short-term mass immigration. And that's something
Right.
that you have yet to discuss. You have yet to address.
But you haven't been able to...
Going in circles with word games about, what's going on, about why do you asked me why it's bad that the people here are dying. I don't understand, and you're calling me stupid. I've been incredibly civil when you're not able to use your brain on the most basic fundamental facts of
okay.
reality, which is that if
You're
your
right, I was
family
being
is
mean.
dying, it's a bad thing. If your nation is dying, it's a bad thing. If your extended
Wait,
family
my nation
is
isn't dying,
it's a bad
though.
thing. Your neighbor is dying.
My nation
it's
isn't
a bad
dying.
thing.
What are you talking about? My nation isn't dying.
The people are not meeting their replacement rates. That means that unless something changes, they will die out. I've had to say this about 10 times.
Right, and I didn't disagree with that,
you're
right?
The one calling
but you're
me
saying,
stupid.
but no, but like we keep on coming back to this point where we don't disagree. If people don't meet the replacement rate, there's going to be no more of those people in this country.
And
but
you
you
think
can't
that that's
demonstrate
okay?
to me.
You think
You
that's a
can't
good
demonstrate to me the core of this argument is you can't demonstrate to me that using immigration to help supplement our population is a bad thing. You keep on going around things, but we get down to the economic things.
The reason
on the
why
most
that's a
baseline
bad thing,
thing.
I've said it over and over again, man.
Yeah.
I've said it over and over again. The reason why that's a bad thing is because it's putting a Band-Aid on an open wound, which is gushing blood, man. It's our country is dying. Our nation's people are not having children anymore, and there won't be enough soon.
So
there won't be any soon.
So your argument is if it's a Band-Aid, right?
Hold on, give me a second here.
Yeah.
Your solution to that is to just replace them with immigrants from other places. Anyone who has a family here who is thinking about, anyone who's a grandparent who's thinking about their grandchildren and the future of this nation, who's contributed and they want to leave something for their children, who's hearing this right now from you, has got to be shocked and appalled. Absolutely. There's no way that anyone in their right mind is listening to this and hearing that you're okay with replacing the native population who is dying out with immigrants, and you don't see a problem with that. You need studies to figure it out. I mean, anybody with half a brain could tell this, man. It's
Right,
obvious
but
that
like
that's a
all
bad
the like
thing, and that we should
studies
stop
point
that
us
from
towards
happening.
things that we can't see directly with our eyes because they're too large, right? Like immigration, you can't see with your eyes what the effects of immigration is on a nationwide scale. So studies are really important, right? And all the studies point towards my argument that immigration is like a good thing, right? And that your idea,
Well, actually, the
economically, yeah.
studies are out
And
in long
hold on,
term.
hold on. I just let you go on a little scree,
Go
right?
ahead.
Like, yeah, right. So, like, you're saying that you're all for America first, right? You're all for America first. I want what's best for the United States. I want what's best for our people, right? Well, what's best for our people isn't allowing them to, starve because we don't want to bring in immigrants from other countries into our already
Nobody's
melting
starving.
pot, already melting pot country, right?
That nobody's going to be starving without mass immigration. They weren't starving in the 60s, man.
Right, but given your worldview, if we're having some kind of replacement rate emergency, right, where we're going to die out in one generation, right, we probably need to supplement our population somehow. Right?
Yeah, and I would say we should do that with families. We should stop the people from dying immediately.
But you can't demonstrate to me why that's the only way to do it.
Well, the reason why we disagree here is because, to me, it's important that the people who are already here, the families who are already here, continue to exist. And so that's the entire issue. So
what do you mean it's important that they continue to exist? You're implying that there's some kind of outside, right? They're dying out, right?
Yes, they're not having families. They won't exist anymore. No one's killing that. I'm not saying this is intentional or anything like that. But the fact is, they will not exist in the future if they don't have babies, right?
So if they care about that, then they should start having children, right?
What I'm saying is that I care about that, and I think that
I care about these people too. I think that they should have as many kids as they want or as few kids as they want.
Okay, now follow me here. It's going to be a big jump for you, but so because that's a bad thing, we should combat that, and any economic solution.
Why are they mutually exclusive?
Towards the larger economy doesn't solve that problem. And
you're not. You keep on saying this like they're mutually exclusive, but you can do both at the same time. Why is it allowing immigration to happen hurting your idea of moving it towards this propaganda to fuck?
So I would say marriage. I wouldn't.
Sure, marriage, like whatever it is, right?
Right, because the reason is because if we increase the birth rates back to normal and then continue with mass immigration, wages will fall in the short term massively, and that'll happen before there's any sort of balancing out in the consumer prices, anything like that. We'll have major issues economically, especially.
Do you know what but again, you keep on saying this thing like you keep on saying this thing where we're talking about like a 2% dip in wages for the high school dropout level of education, right? For those kinds of people in the workforce, and that could be offset by social programs. So what's the problem?
So we are going to actually get into the Q&A right now. The chat. We have a lot of questions.
I'm
so
sure. Good talk.
So it's not over yet. All right, so we're gonna start with the super chat first. But I jotted down all your guys' questions, so we'll get to them all. So from Kirkland 50 to Miyo, my family immigrated from India due to corruption from the Indian government and wanted the economic opportunity in the U.S. Did my family destroy the American culture by coming here?
Good question, and I'd say no. And in fact, my mama just told me about an Indian guy she met the other day who was in a similar position. They told him, you can come to America if you serve as a fighter pilot for 7 years first. And he did that, and he went on to become a multi-billionaire head of like Stem Cell Research Corporation or something like that. Incredible story, seriously. Truly an American success story.
Wait, wouldn't that be like really horrible to you? You know where stem cells come from, right?
It's okay. So, without getting into that, it's an economic success story, okay, for this guy. I would say that no, any of these individual stories, they're something that I draw inspiration from, if anything. However, and this is one of the difficult issues, is that any policy proposal which anyone brings about is going to disaffect certain people. And so when we say America first, our position is that the people who are currently in America should be the priority of the American state and government. And that's over anyone else. And since we have so many issues here, we have soldiers, veterans dying in the streets. We have people who can't get health care. We have people who are still living in poverty, people who, don't have enough to eat or a roof over their heads in America. We need to solve these issues before we take on all the issues of the rest of the world. And if that means that there are people who will be negatively impacted, who won't have the economic benefits of coming to America because we need to sort out our own issues first. I'd say it's like, putting on your own mask in an airplane first before someone else's.
Well, really quick, but you keep on saying these things like they're mutually exclusive and not like they can feed into each other and have positive outcomes in tandem, right? So while we might have a bunch of veterans that are being treated shitty in the United States right now, the best way for us to be able to, help out veterans through veterans programs through the government, right, would be for there to be more taxes paying into the pool of taxes that we collect, right? And the way that you do that is you increase our economic output.
So that's an interesting theory, and it could be that maybe it will work out. And that's something that maybe we could discuss in the future. But as of right now, our answer is that we have to immediately begin prioritizing the American families, basically across every level.
Okay.
There goes Todd again.
Uh-oh.
This happens every night. He'll be back. I have to fix that.
F's in chat for Todd.
Yeah. All right. So we have a lot of questions, you guys. So let's try to get to some of these. So from Based Homeschool Mom, for Sondsol, do you oppose a global government? Do you think America can remain free without national sovereignty? And do you think immigrants will resist global government?
Global government. I feel like some kind of global government might be inevitable, but I don't know exactly what I think about it right now. It feels like having some kind of like United Nations type organization is a good thing for world peace. Do you think America can remain free without national sovereignty? I don't know. I don't think I've made a case against national sovereignty this entire time.
Absolutely, you have. That's what global government is. You look at what the European Union is.
If by global government you mean just like there's no borders in the entire world, right? And it's just, the world is the government.
The European Union has borders, but they have a global government.
Okay, well then, yeah, I would advocate for something like that because the European Union has been just unambiguously good for the
So you would
people
choose that over national sovereignty as your answer to a question.
Well, they still have national sovereignty.
That's what the entire Brexit thing was about regaining their
national
sovereignty.
Most of the things that people argued against in favor of Brexit were all fucking lies, but we can have that conversation some other time.
That's a whole
right?
other conversation.
Just really quick, and there's
topic.
Really quick. There's a last thing here. Do you think immigrants will resist global move? Do you think immigrants will resist global government? Some of them probably would be. Right there are some immigrants that are super conservative. I don't know why you guys just think that everyone that's not a natural born white citizen of America is automatically this like fucking Antifa super soldier or something like that.
Well, I don't know about that categorization, but the last thing I'll touch on this is that the national sovereignty and global government are basically mutually exclusive, and that is.
But if you're talking about in the EU, since they still have national sovereignty,
right?
But you're just lying.
Well, go ahead.
Well, so you could say they had national sovereignty, but if you look at how the procedural stuff in the EU works, they have bureaucrats that Great Britain did not elect, which are now controlling Great Britain's policies. And so it's like German or French people who are deciding the fishing policies and stuff of Great Britain for them, and it's hurting
But they
their
still have
economy for the benefit of
representation.
others in the European Union. And you could say that they have representation, but they don't have sovereignty, and that's the difference. And that matters to Americans, and that matters to a lot of people. It matters to British people, apparently, but it doesn't matter to some people, and it matters to some more than others, and I think that's her point.
To what degree do you think the sovereignty of EU nation states has been obliterated? What does sovereignty even mean to you?
Yeah, I would say this sovereignty is, I mean, at least for the purposes of this discussion, what I mean is the ability to rule over yourselves, have a self-determination as a nation, and that is stripped from any nation who becomes a part of a global government.
Okay. So next question from Based Homeschool Mom. Again, I'm pulling up the ones I can now, and then I'll get to the ones that I had to jot down. All right. So for Sondsol, why don't you just admit that you think white Americans are bad and deserve to become a minority in America? You hide it well, but it's obvious you're a racist.
Listen,
So true.
I don't like
I
to
got
admit
that
this
vibe.
online very often, and it's kind of a well-kept secret, but I too am white, and I don't hate white people. I know a lot of them myself, and I personally have a white friend.
I've heard that
right?
I have white friends.
Yeah, I have white friends. I do have a white friend, and I don't know. I wouldn't use the R word against me. Okay.
Okay. So, from Kevin C. DeSanzo, please explain the position you are representing without a question being asked you. Please state your position on America first.
Oh, sure. So the reason that we didn't really talk about America First itself is because we couldn't get past the immigration topic. My position on America First in terms of like Nick Fuentes's America First movement is that it is basically just like a rebranding of your standard fascist movement. I really feel super...
That's absurd.
Yeah, of course it's absurd to you, but there's all kinds of fun ways for fascists to rebrand themselves over the past couple of years. Identitarians, what's the one, the tradcons, shit like that. They all basically believe the same thing. Maybe they have like one or two gripes with some minor parts of the ideology, but they all basically believe the same thing. Ultra nationalism, right? The no immigration. We all have to return to tradition. All these things. It's all basically the same thing. So. Yeah, I have zero respect for people
that is a
that are
very interesting conspiracy theory, Sondsol.
How is that a conspiracy theory? Even by any definition of the word? Even by any definition of the term, how is that a fucking conspiracy theory?
It's kind of hilarious, if anyone is like, well, I'm a nationalist or I'm in favor of traditional cultures.
Well, hold on, did I say that?
Those are secret Nazis. Quick, hunt them down.
Whoa, hold on. What did I say that all people that are nationalists or all people that are into tradition?
Yeah, these are
fascists?
secret dog whistles.
I said that there are
fascism, Nazism.
I said that those are parts of like if you take all those different things and you put them into one movement, they can kind of all point towards like a fascist movement. But when you look at like identitarians and tradcons or what is it, paleocons, America First Groyper people, yeah, these people all basically believe the same fucking thing, right? Now, not that any one of those things itself is a fascist belief, right? They're nationalist fucking communists, right? They're very traditional communists. I had to talk to a couple of those the other night, and they were all equally stupid as you guys.
It's Frankenstein's fascist. It's all, you add in a little traditionalism. It's like the Powder Puff Girls. Some chemical.
No. Wait, do you think fascism is just like the word fascism and it has no defining features to it? I'm talking about defining features of fascism. Yeah. Not like all of them, but
I think that it's convenient for you to
it's not convenient for me to have to live in a country like with you. It's really inconvenient to live in a country where people like you vote. It's super fucking inconvenient.
The very first thing that you said to me was some racist thing about white people and white nationalism. And I was just talking about all of the American people. So I think I'll let that.
Well, you also said something at the beginning of this about having trying to go back to the 90% white country that we had before the
not about
6 years
trying to
ago.
go back. I simply represented that is a major statistical change in demographics, going from 90% of any population in a nation to 40% of a population. I think that any nation, if that happened anywhere, that would represent a major demographic and political and cultural change.
Okay, so from Ian, this is for Mr. America First. We're going to call you that from now on. While there is currently no mass immigration, what are your thoughts on the Cuban refugee crisis and how the 75K plus refugees were a net positive on the economy?
Well, I haven't looked into that specific group or demographic. I would say that well, for the record, it seems like the Cuban refugees are people who overwhelmingly vote Republican if we're getting into the electoral issues of mass immigration. However, more generations down, their children and grandchildren end up voting more and more blue again. Now that being
So you're
said,
saying that they so you're
that
saying that by them assimilating into our society, now it's a bad thing because they're voting for the Democrats?
well, again, it just represents how basically every single demographic of Latin Americans is voting that way, and that's not
Yeah.
how the people who are already here are voting.
Do you
They're
think that
basically
might be
split.
weird? That
Yeah,
this
I think
group
it
of
is weird,
people, well,
and that's
really quick,
exactly
really
my
quick.
point: is that
The,
foreigners
the
are changing our politics.
Wait, no, hold on. Let me ask you this question. Don't you think it's weird that a group of people that came over here and were traditionally voting Republican are like, as we see their generations assimilate into the population, they start voting more and more liberal? Do you think that might
They're
be
voting
indicative of the
Republican.
conservative party in this?
They're
In
voting Republican because they fled from a communist state. And the
right.
people who
And why
were
wouldn't they
there,
keep
the
on voting
first
that way?
generation immigrants, they do keep voting that way.
Sure,
They don't change. They keep voting
I
Republican
understand.
because they know the dangers of communism. Now, their children and grandchildren, they don't know the horrors of communism that their parents, grandparents had to live under. And so, they vote a lot like you would, thinking everything should be nice for everybody and, you know, um,
Oh, you don't think that our
your
country should be nice
America
for everybody?
your America last globalist worldview.
No, I'm America first, buddy. I love my country, all right? I want our country to rise to be number one, but the only way we can do that is through
Is
multiculturalism,
all of the
mass
people dying?
immigration, massive social programs, and forced feminization of all groypers.
Oh no, he's going too far now.
That's
He
getting
knows
it.
our Achilles heel. It's
That was
the
funny.
toxic masculinity.
That was
Got our
funny.
kryptonite.
All right, so from Eternal Anglo, America as it exists cannot represent the interests of the American people. So what does America first mean substantially?
Ooh, very good question. Well, yeah. So I would say, well, I would go back again to Nick Fuentes. What I quoted him in the beginning. What he says is that, put simply, America first means the well-being and interest of the good of the flesh and blood American people in this place. First, every time, always, before everything else, and not one single exception. It's America first over the multinational, the American people over the multinational corporations, over the regime that is in the control of this nation and their profits and power, over our rivals like Russia and China and North Korea, over our allies like NATO, Japan, Israel, South Korea, over the dogmas of free market capitalism and socialism. That's what America first means, is putting the people who are here first over all of those interests.
All right, so from Ash P to Miyo, does Miyo want to repeal the 19th and prevent women from working?
Very interesting question. Well, I would have to say,
I'm glad this was brought up. I've wanted to talk to you about this one, but we never got to
I'd
it.
have to say that in the interest of having families, well, if a woman is a mom, then by the nature of that, she won't be spending that time working, right? And so, as far as preventing women from working, I guess by nature of the fact that I'd rather they raise children and be moms, I guess so. as far as repealing the 19th, um, it's an interesting question. You know, it's a discussion that I think, you know,
Oh, come on, just say it. Just say it. Don't. I've not hit a single fucking position that I believe in this entire thing. Just fucking say it. Why are you? You're not even showing your fucking face.
All right, you know what? Repeal the 19th. No women.
So why do you want to take away? All right, here we fucking go. Miyo, why do you want to take away people's freedoms?
Oh, I don't think that voting is a freedom.
Oh, is it a tyranny on someone to be able to vote, to have a say in their government?
Well, no, I mean, I don't think that
So it's a
everyone
freedom
has
then.
the inherent natural right to vote. I don't think it's taking someone's freedom away to have them not voting.
But
You know, the way
it's
that
in our
America-
Constitution, my friend.
Well, it is now that they changed it.
That it is a freedom for us to have, right? And they extended that to women because we started to realize, oh shit, women are also people too, and we should probably allow them to do things in this country.
Do you think they didn't realize that women were people before that amendment?
I think that people back in the 18 and 1700s probably had some really bad opinions on women, yes.
Okay, see, I would argue that the traditional cultures, the way that they treated women was actually with a huge amount of reverence and respect, and that motherhood was like the highest virtue of morality for women, and that's why the archetypal.
Do you think that people?
highest,
Do you think that people today don't value mothers?
Yeah, I think that they don't actually. I think that motherhood is seen as something that if you tell women, be a mom, be barefoot in the kitchen or whatever, that's looked down upon. That you're a successful career woman who's empowered would look down on a woman like that and say, well, you could have done so much if you didn't tie yourself down with kids, right? I think we hear that kind of thing all the time.
I think that if you give people the dichotomy of either stay barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen where you have no freedom to do anything that you want to do, and
well, you see, that's it right there. That's exactly the type of framing I'm talking about, where motherhood.
But you were the
is
one that used the
antithetical to
word
freedom,
barefoot
in
and
your
pregnant.
opinion.
That's why I'm assuming that's
I
what you
wouldn't argue
believe.
that takes away freedom. I wouldn't. You put that on the dichotomy on the other side of freedom.
Rachel wants to debate you on repealing the 19th because she wants to repeal the 19th.
Do we have to do that right now?
No, not right now.
Okay, thank God. I don't know enough
of course
about
not.
it.
Another night.
Sure.
Right now, get real. Okay, so from Ian again. Okay, once again for Mr. America First. Thoughts on mixed race couples? Are they based or cringe? Thoughts on mixed immigrant families? Based or cringe?
Mixed race couples. I don't know what all this racial discussion is about. Very interesting questions coming from the left side. I don't know what all this obsession with race is about. It makes me super uncomfortable. As someone who's fundamentally opposed to racism.
You're not showing your face. You can answer it any way that you truly believe.
All forms of hate, obviously. I would say that, right now I don't really have an opinion on what
Don't you
other
think
people
that it would lead to a lot
do,
of social cohesion?
what other people want to do in their lives, who people want to love or have families with. That all, I'm not trying to take everybody's freedoms away like that. I'm not sure I understand the question exactly.
I don't know. Whose audio is messed up? Fire. He's saying that we have audio problems. I don't hear anything, but oh, it's fine now. Okay. All right. So let's move on. From LRN News, we have endless examples around the world where different people living under the same government causes tensions and conflict. Why would it be different in the U.S.?
Can you point to a more racially and ethnically diverse country than the United States of America? Or even to that point, can you point to a more ethnically and racially diverse country than the United States of America that is as economically prosperous as the United States of America is?
Well, that's not really fair because the United States became economically prosperous before all of the different ethnic groups came in, right?
It became more economically prosperous after we passed the 1965
sure,
immigration
but a lot of that is due to the tech revolution and so many other factors that we can't tie.
Immigrants coming over here and contributing to that, super fucking helped.
I mean, I'd say the age of computers added more to the GDP than immigrants.
Immigrants came over and they helped us develop really, really strong and powerful computers. That is how
If you say
our
so, just to get to the heart
do
of
you
the
want me
spirit
to
of
do
this
you want me
question.
to like show you the list of people's names that
just-
worked in like computer science back in the day? Because it's not going to be just Jim Jones and
I understand.
John. Yeah.
So you're really having trouble with white names, aren't you? So so just to get to the heart of the spirit of this question, I would say that one argument that people use a lot is that the one reason why Africa got so messed up is because the European colonizers came in and they drew borders and made countries which didn't account for the different ethnic groups in Africa, the
That is
thousands of
not the
different
main
ethnic
argument.
groups. Well, it's an argument that people use. It's
part
something
of it. It's part of a broader argument. But do you think that is the number one thing that people point towards? They're like,
oh no,
yeah,
sure,
no, it's
sure,
you know,
definitely.
it's the fact that we went in there and we fucking destroyed their governments, and then
Not
we
arguing
forced
that
their
at all.
people to
What I'm saying
farm
is that
rubber, or
they
we would
had
chop
many
off their
different-
hands.
It's interesting that he doesn't want me to get this sentence
No,
out.
go ahead. I'm letting you talk.
There are a lot of different ethnic groups living inside of these countries who had problems with each other, and it caused a lot of conflict. And if you point out that that same principle could exist in America, having many different ethnic groups living together in a multicultural society, that it could cause inherent conflict and tension, people will call you racist for that.
But you're pointing towards one of the areas of the world that has the most destabilized countries, right? And then you're pointing towards the most stable government in the fucking world. You realize that you're fucking your own argument here. That this would be an argument against the causation of ethnic tensions making a country fail. You just fucked your own point there.
I'm not sure how you mean.
Okay, let me spell it out for you. If these areas in Africa are having ethnic tensions with each other because they're like the borders were drawn funky, right? And they're having ethnic tensions and their country's bad. But we have the most ethnically and racially diverse country over here, but it is the most economically prosperous and stable country in the entire world in the history of mankind, right?
It's interesting to me
this
that
shows
you shifted
that
to
there is no
economics for America. You shifted to economics here. That
and stable government.
Yes. We'll see how that goes.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we've had a very stable government for the past what 60 years since the 1965 Immigration Act. So, like, I feel like if our government hasn't been destabilized by the massive fucking differences that we have, right? I feel like we would have seen that by now, right?
I'll just put it here: if you think things are more stable than 1960s or so, then that's.
I think that they're about on par, to be honest.
All right.
Okay. All right. So back from Ian again says, since he dodged it, here it is more clear. Do you support interracial marriage and relationships, or do you oppose interracial marriage and relationship?
You're not showing your face.
Wow, it's
you
amazing.
have no mask to take off.
It's amazing the amount of racial questions I'm getting from Sonsol's side. I'm almost curious how Sondsol feels about racial questions now after all of this. I would say that
I can answer this question. Hey, really quick, I can answer this question super easily. I do not care if people want to have an interracial relationship. I do not care if a man that is black and a woman that is white get together and they have children. I think all of that is beautiful and leads to really, really great and beautiful, long-lasting relationships. I have no problem with it whatsoever. What about you, buddy?
Good. Yeah, I'm really glad, after all the race talk coming from Sondsol and his friends, it's good to hear that, man. Yeah, I would basically completely agree. I don't care at all about interracial marriage. Why would I? I'm here arguing for America first, a strong state which benefits all the people who are here currently right now. And we're not for oppression or anything like that. We want what's best for the people who are here.
Okay. So from Eric Pone, what about conscious segregation? Should races live together at all?
Conscious segregation. I'm not sure what he means by that. Like government enforced segregation, or just freedom of association where people choose to live in their own communities.
I think that the idea, I could be wrong. I don't know what this necessarily means. I'm assuming that conscious segregation means that we segregate people knowing that it's wrong, but we're still going to do it because we see some kind of benefit for it. I don't know if this person's still in chat and they can elaborate, but
Yeah, Eric,
even
maybe
in
if you
that
want to
case,
elaborate on that.
if there's a case for conscious segregation, I would have to see what that is. It doesn't seem to me that discriminating on someone based off of immutable characteristics is a useful thing.
Justin KG says interracial relationships have children who produce higher rates of school dropouts, mental illness, drug abuse, and identity issues. Wasn't quite a question.
So why?
I don't know if Justin.
Well,
if
I
you
mean,
want...
I can think of a couple of reasons why we might see that. Maybe they're fatherless, or they are in a lower economic position. Like, we would just have to see what the other correlative factors are, right? And see which one has the strongest correlation.
Okay. So from Ariel Fernandez, for Miyo, do you believe that the 15th Amendment should also be repealed? Also, I sent a $2 question for both participants about Borjas. I don't remember what that question was. I do remember seeing it. If you just want to type it up, you don't have to give us a super chat, but if you want to type it up again, and I could re-pull that up.
Do I believe that the 15th Amendment should also be repealed? No, not at all. I don't have any opinions on the 15th Amendment whatsoever.
Okay.
I'm again. I see a lot of questions, a lot of racial questions, and I understand that it has to do with what Sondsol and his his crowd have been told about our worldview. I'm hoping that I can clear a lot of this up. That's something that I've never thought about before, and I have no interest in, honestly. There's no mask. There's no hiding anything here. Racial voting laws is something that I'm not interested in at all.
I think I know more about the America First ideology than you think I do. You just were not able to argue past the immigration thing. So I don't know. We can have a round 2 on it. I'm very interested to get to the other parts of it.
I am too. Sounds good.
All right. So from Kevin C. to Sondsol, how has the current immigration policy the U.S. has had for the last 60 years benefited illegal immigrants?
I don't know that it has. I do know that before the immigration reforms that we passed in the 60s, we didn't have an illegal immigration problem, because the idea of our border being this hard line was not there. People would come across the border. They would stay for a season, like work seasonally in farms, and then they would go back over to their country with their earnings, and then they would come back and forth, and they wouldn't live here. But after our immigration reforms, where we started putting caps on the amount of immigrants that we were taking in, and putting like hard caps on how many people were able to come over the southern border, right? It became dangerous for people to cross the border, because it was now a crime. So if you crossed, you could get arrested, and if you crossed back, you could get arrested. And so every season doing that would be dangerous. So people just ended up staying here. So actually, the fact that we passed that bill led to people having to stay here instead of just like fixing that part of it, right? I would love to fix that part and give some kind of
enforcement issue more than anything else.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't an issue.
You're talking about people illegally coming back and forth. There aren't pro illegal immigrant.
Well,
lobbies.
we had to create a new system for it, right? Like, that's what work visas are now. All we would have to do to go back to that kind of system is hand out work visas like they're candy seasonally, right? And then people wouldn't feel the need to stay here for their entire life.
Do you understand that what you're saying is, because they're going to break the rules anyway, we should make it okay?
It wasn't against the rules back then.
To illegally immigrate?
It wasn't an illegal immigration, because they weren't immigrating. They were coming over here seasonally to work, and then they went home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I must have misunderstood what you were saying.
Yeah, so basically, before we passed the immigration reform, people didn't stay here, right? Because it wasn't illegal to cross the border, so they would just like cross freely. But once we made it illegal to cross the border, then they had to stay here, because every time they crossed the border, it was an increased chance they would get caught, right? So they had to stay here in order not to get caught.
Yeah, do you have off the top of your head when it became legal for or illegal to cross the border of the United States? Because it
I
seems to me like a nation doesn't exist without borders, and so
We
those
had
would have
borders.
have
It's just
existed since its inception.
borders in terms of immigration didn't have the same connotation as they do now. I think it was in the 60s. If you want, I can try and find an exact source. I didn't know that we would talk about that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just that's something I've never heard of before. I would dispute that.
No, this is just the way it is. This is why we have people staying here from Mexico and Central America in our country.
Well, we have people coming over for work visas and then staying after they expire is what's happening, and that's illegal too.
Well, right now, but back then they didn't need a work visa because work visas weren't a thing until we passed immigration
So
reform.
you're talking about back then, before this. Every number I'm seeing here is what 1929 is when um, the U.S. passed a bill to restrict immigrants from the U.S. Mexican border. So that's the past 60 years. What this question
Right,
is
like
addressing. That would
right, immigrants, but these people weren't immigrants. They were coming here to work. There's a difference.
what would you classify them as if not immigrants then?
Like temporary workers, people with like green cards that come here to work. We don't call those people immigrants.
I would dispute that, but we can move on.
Oh, okay.
All right, so from Fabulous
Thank you so much for
Trans,
the raid,
is the
Hans.
Groyper movement open to LGBT people? And and why do you guys ground your social conservatism in Christianity when it's a dying religion?
Interesting question. So as far as I'm not sure what you mean by open to LGBT people. As a Christian movement, we care about all people and we want the well-being for all people. I don't believe that engaging in homosexual acts is good for people or a healthy, productive way to live life. I think that it's
How?
heavily correlated with mental illness. I think that it's way more heavily correlated with pedophilia.
Correlated, but not causative.
And I think that it's heavily correlated with being abused as a child, which again indicates some sort of issue there that I genuinely feel bad for these people because most of them had rough childhoods.
So
or,
again,
not
really quick,
accepted
I would
or
love
had
to. I would love
abusive
to.
relationships.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
this is a two-part question. So
I didn't hear that. I didn't know you didn't answer the second part yet. Go ahead.
yeah. So why do we ground our social conservatism in Christianity when it's a dying religion? Well, I would say that whether Christianity is a popular religion or not has no bearing on whether it's true. And more so than that, the reason why the reason why we ground our moral beliefs to Christianity is because it's true. That's what it's based on. If you want to know what it's based on, that's what it's based on. But
What do you mean it's based on that?
it's based on Christianity. Our entire framework, our entire worldview, our moral framework is based on God. And
Wait, is it based on God or is it based on Christianity?
Christ is God. So
Well, right, those things track, but do you base it off of like rules in the Bible or do you base it off of
the Christian morality set forth by Jesus Christ as best as we can interpret it. And so
you trust
to me,
human interpretations of the Bible in order to
we could debate the finer points of Christianity another time. But just to answer, why do we ground our social conservatism in Christianity? A large part of it is, the biggest part is because it's true. And it's all true and it's all real. And I highly recommend for anybody. I started reading the Bible as an atheist, as a group of history manuscripts. And it's one of the most fascinating collections of documents that you will have ever read. There's a reason why it's outlasted kingdoms and entire empires. And more so than that, the traditional Christian cultures of especially the Western European groups, which have been largely categorized by Christendom, or characterized by Christendom for the past 1,000 years or so, they have made some of the most successful civilizations, which figured out morality basically better than anyone else in the end. And we can all agree
Wait,
that
did they
we
get
have
their morality from Christianity too, or did they create their own
Christians, yes.
morality? No. These Christian nations, you're saying that they discovered morality, but doesn't morality come from the Bible? Why did they create any new kind of moral system?
Sure. Maybe create was the wrong word, but their sense of morality is better and leads to better outcomes. Basically, everybody
For
agrees
who?
on this.
No,
You know,
but
then,
I disagree on literally everything that you're saying right now.
So
And I
would
don't
you
think
say
that you
that it's
understand
better
Christianity.
than Islam or worse?
Hey, that's
Do you think that it's
freaking
better, the religion where they throw gays off buildings and where they're the majority religion?
You realize
Or,
that Christians burned gays at the stake, right? Because they were gay?
well, I'm talking about Christians now and Muslims now.
Wait, are we talking about the current state of these religions, or are we talking about their morality?
Well, that's why I was talking about the morality, which has evolved over time.
Well, then, if it's
Now-
evolved over time, then why are you basing it on the Bible? Because that means that you're not basing it on the Bible. You're basing it off of the time period that you're in.
Well, again, I'm talking about interpretation of Jesus's words, where there are some things where he set down heavy set laws and he said you can't do this, okay? And then there are some things where he gave general guidance on how to be and what a person's highest pursuit and aim in life should be. And it's applying those principles across your every action in life is the goal of Christians. That's what a Christ-like life is about. And you can interpret that how you will.
Let me just do this one really quick. From Stranger, given Jesus was likely brown and that he's supposedly to be coming back, couldn't you be accidentally keeping Jesus out by ending immigration?
Very, very solid argument. I like it. Well, I would argue that if Jesus came, when Jesus comes back, if you read the book of Revelation, it is, Jesus isn't just going to come back as some immigrant and get denied entry to a border somewhere. That's not how the story ends, turns out. So don't worry. When Jesus comes back, you'll know.
Okay, so from Justin KG to Sondsol, how are homosexual acts not harmful when in America homosexuals are 2 to 4% of the population and account for over 67% of HIV cases?
I have a higher chance of contracting HIV by having straight sex than that same girl having sex with another girl. You're have no idea what the fuck you're talking about in terms of HIV cases. Just because it started up in the LGBT community doesn't mean that it is an inherently gay virus, right? We've talked about this for the past, fucking, 30, 40 years since it's been around, and, the arguments haven't gotten any smarter, right? It's not a gay virus. It's just one that happened to come up in the gay community, right, and get passed around there.
Yeah, so I don't know about this specifically. I would dispute that. I'd say that, it is obviously associated with a higher number of sexual partners, the likelihood of contracting sexually transmitted diseases. Is that something we can agree on?
Sure, right.
Okay,
but how does that...
Given the fact that homosexuals have an average of dozens more sexual partners than heterosexuals over the course of their lifetime, it's basically, it's statistically...
you're saying that...
makes sense that they would be more likely to contract sexually transmitted diseases.
I have to ask you, do you think that the average homosexual person, gay, lesbian, whatever, has dozens of sexual partners compared to the average straight person?
Yeah,
Dozens.
I saw a study about that once. I'll try and look it up. I was shocked, honestly, to hear those numbers. It was crazy.
Okay, even if that's the case, 1 second.
Yeah, I was absolutely shocked to hear about that.
And even if that's the case, right? Why is the act itself more harmful just because there is a disease that is being passed around, an STD, right?
Oh,
that
well,
doesn't mean that. Hold on, really quick. You're not saying that the act of homosexuality is harmful. You're saying that the act of promiscuity.
And they're
Yeah,
linked.
you're saying it right.
Yeah, promiscuity.
Right.
They're
You're saying
linked
that
for some reason.
that can be something that leads to
Yeah,
STDs,
sure.
right?
And that's
But
so in my go
but
ahead.
you draw causal links where there's only correlatively. Holy shit!
Sometimes
I cannot fucking
correlation
speak right now.
is causation. Sometimes it is. It's not
Sometimes it is, but
necessarily,
you would
but it
have
is.
to demonstrate that being homosexual leads you to be more promiscuous.
Sure. And so here's how I would generally paint our worldview is that homosexuals are generally speaking, or no, statistically, way more likely to have been abused as children. They're more likely to have
Why?
way more sexual partners. They're more likely to cheat. They're more likely to have abuse. They're more likely to have short-term relationships rather than long ones. They're less likely to get married. They're more
Wait,
likely to kill
hold on, really
themselves.
quick,
Hold on,
one
I'm
point at a
stating
time. You're gish
statistics.
galloping like a motherfucker right now.
I'm citing a lot of statistics.
You're
which
citing
lead to
a bunch
large
of statistics, but you're not asking a single fucking question as to why that might be the case.
I-
You're automatically drawing. You're reading off
I
a bunch
let
of
you talk
statistics,
and explain
right?
your
Right?
side.
Yeah. You let me speak, and I gave 1 point, and then I let you speak, and then you machine gunned off like a fucking AK-47 a million fucking statistics that I can't fucking respond to all of them, right?
I
So
understand why
you're
these
drawing a
statistics are
fucking
things you don't
like
like. I
complete.
do.
No, it's not that just that I don't like them, right? Because if it's a stat, it's a stat, right? And we can look at the answers for why these things are, right?
And so that's what I was getting at. The reason why all of these stats are correlated with homosexuality is because in our worldview, not stating this as a fact, but just as my opinion and the opinion of the people who share it with me, it is a form of mental illness. It's indicative of mental illness.
Yeah, but literally no scientist would agree with you on that.
Well, and that's okay. I would say that given all of the rates of these things, which I just stated, anybody can go back and listen to while I was being interrupted. It obviously points to the fact that there's something going on that has been warped in the sexual nature of these people.
Do you think that maybe the fact that everyone treated gay people so abhorrently and so as if they were a pariah from society might have led to them going into very, very isolationist kind of groups with each other?
Well,
right?
I would say that it's probably more likely that the people who abused them as children led to that, by and large.
Well, do you
And
think that people abused them because they were gay, perhaps? If they came out to their family and then their family beat them?
I'm sure that things like that don't help. However, I would argue
Then
that
why are we
reason
talking
they're
so
engaged in this
confidently?
activity-
If you don't know about these things, why are you speaking so confidently about things that you don't know
Well, what
about?
I would say, I don't know if that exactly. I mean, I would say that that's probably that affected them negatively. Would I say that that's the main driving cause of why all of these things are so bad? Why 69% of AIDS cases are homosexual men? And by the way, you said all the scientists disagree with me on whether it's a mental illness or not. Actually,
Yes.
all the scientists did agree with me that it was a mental illness until just a couple years ago when they all decided to change it for some reason. And so,
Do you know how mental illness is classified in the APA?
Go ahead.
A mental illness is something that is that affects you on a day-to-day basis and makes you aberrant from society, right? It's something that makes your life more difficult, right?
And I would argue that any condition which makes you more likely to be one of the 69%
No.
of people who have
Hold on.
AIDS.
You no, but like right here, you're correlating AIDS with a mental illness, right?
So
You're
when
trying
did
to
the
make
definition of mental illness change to that?
It never
When did it
changed.
change to that? The definition of mental illness,
As soon as we
according to
made the
APA, has never
American
changed.
Psychological or Association, right? That was the definition, right? And things have been added and taken out of the APA over time, right?
Okay,
The
so the
DSM-5,
definition of
DSM-6.
mental illness has changed.
No, it stayed the same. It's how we.
Okay, so
how we
what
categorize
changed
things.
that recategorized homosexuality
through
from mental illness
studying,
to not
sure,
be?
Sure. Through
What
studying things,
changed?
we realized, right? Because we used to make assumptions about homosexuality. Through study, we realized that this is not a this is not something that could be categorized as a mental illness, because it is not something that leads to someone living like it doesn't affect their everyday life negatively, right? So simply being hold on really quick, hold on really quick. Something like ADHD, like I have, right, can make my life like more difficult every single day, because it is hard for me to stick to a single task and finish that task to completion. For a gay person, what about them being gay keeps them from finishing doing their everyday tasks? What about being attracted to a man being attracted to a man makes their everyday experience more difficult?
Well, I would say that first of all, they obviously have more sexual tendencies, which, would make getting things done in the day more difficult.
You're making a correlative argument again.
The fact that they have more sexual partners on average, to the point where there's 70% of all AIDS cases, man, is not an insignificant thing.
Hold on. Well, men have more sexual partners than women. Should we classify being a man as a mental illness?
No, the rates. Based, Brittany. No, I mean the rates are not even close to something like 70%.
So it's how many people you fuck is when you draw the line for a mental illness.
Well, I mean it's not necessarily.
Is Johnny Sins like mentally ill because he fucks a lot of people for his job?
I don't know who that is, but it's all of the statistics which I referenced earlier, man. It's the fact that they're more likely to kill themselves. It's the fact that they're 2.5% of the population.
This is so boring. Oh, God, it's so boring. You just read off statistics and then you say what you believe already without actually fucking doing any kind of analysis into it.
Okay, but let me finish this.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not reading anything. This is all off the dome, man. This is that.
Damn, you really obsess over gay people. You ever wonder why that is?
That's funny. Gay people be like, "You're gay." No, these are the statistics, and actually, it's because I care about people and I want what's best for the people in our society. And so when I see something that's so correlated with so many bad things, I want to look into the heart of those issues and see if they can be addressed and alleviated, so that those people who are so things are so bad off for them right now, that things could be better off. And I think that that a part of the one of the biggest parts of the issue is the sexual deviancy and degeneracy, and the fact that they have so many sexual partners. The fact that they have, having so many sexual partners is degenerate, and it leads to AIDS. That's proven. That's a fact. They're 2.5% of the population.
How many people do you have to fuck to get AIDS
cases? Just the right one, I guess.
Okay, so it's not how many people that you fuck.
Well, no, it increases your chances, man. It's like...
Okay, so then why do you keep on saying these things like having more sexual partners gives you AIDS?
I didn't say it gives you AIDS ever.
You literally
did
like fucking 20 seconds ago.
Being a gay man drastically increases your risk of AIDS. How about that?
Sure, statistically speaking, right?
Okay,
gay men are the ones that have more AIDS.
Because of the amount of sexual partners that they have. That's what increases the risk.
God damn it. We have to move on, because this motherfucker goes around in circles over and over and over.
All right.
So let's. So Eric Pone says, "Oh, I'm hearing myself echo." But Eric Pone says, "How do polygamous families fit?" Why am I hearing myself echo? Does the audience? Do you guys hear me echo too?
I do.
Anybody? Yeah. What the fuck?
It's not me.
Todd. It was Todd.
Todd.
No, bad Todd. All right, mute yourself again. Okay, so how do polygamous families fit? The Bible allows for it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would point to, I believe it's 1 Timothy 3, where Timothy is laying down, he's writing a letter to, I believe, his nephew or something like that, maybe his grandson, and he's talking about what a leader in the church, a role model Christian should be like. And he writes specifically, an overseer then, or what Catholics now call bishops, I believe, must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, skillful in teaching. He goes on and on. But the husband of one wife is like the first thing that he says. And so I would argue there that was obviously inseparably tied to morality on some level. It being necessary and important to be a leader in the church according to Jesus Christ's apostles.
Never mind. I don't have to argue about everything. It's just I could dunk on you so fucking hard for that logic, but we can go on.
Well, I understand why an appeal to the Bible's authority
No. It's not that. It's just the fact that even with that logic, right? Polygamy would be fine as long as you're not a bishop of the church. And then you also have to look at the fact that the church doesn't allow bishops or priests to get married in the first place, so they're not following the teachings of the Bible in the first place. So all these different things are all leading into very funny things.
So again, I'm not entirely educated on Catholicism. That's one thing which I'm looking into now myself. But it is this is what he's talking about, an overseer in the church. I think that applies to bishops. I'm not sure what that equates to becoming within the church. However, to counter your first point, I would say that what that allows other people to be polygamous. I would say what he's doing here is he's laying out what a role model looks like. And that is, I mean, to match a role model, it should be the pursuit of everyone. So that's how I would argue that. I wouldn't say like, well, it's okay for everyone else unless you really care about the church and you want to be a leader in it. I would say anyone who wants to live a Christ-like life according to this morality would try and strive for the highest ideal.
Okay. All right. So let's see what else we have here. From Yucatan, sexual desires toward things with whom, in principle, you cannot produce healthy offspring with is wrong, as that goes against the teleology of sex and what's wrong with. Oh, God.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we can't have people that are not like able to have children, right? Because of being sterile or having a barren womb. Those people aren't allowed to get married, or and if you have sexual desire towards those people, you're going to fucking hell, right? Anyone that engages in any kind of non-penis in vagina sex, even the straight people that are attracted to people that they can reproduce with, those people are all going to hell. So you don't believe what you're saying, Yucatan.
Well, so this is actually interesting. I referenced this once before. There was a candidate running against Barack Obama, another black guy. I forget his name because he didn't win. But he has a famous interview, if anyone can find it, about this, where he discusses the nature and the principle of marriage, and that the I don't even know the word. But it's coincidental that the if a woman is barren or if a man is sterile, but that doesn't go against the principle and the nature of marriage, being a man and a woman, and the general idea of the role of marriage. Whereas homosexual marriage is like antithetical to it in nature. It's impossible.
Nope. He's gone.
Wait,
hold on. Start over because you were about to say something really stupid.
It was like impasse, and then you kind of cut out.
It's impossible for what to happen in nature?
It's impossible according to the nature of the act itself. There is no coincidental piece of this which could just arbitrarily change, like someone is sterile or a biological anomaly, which makes them unable to have children. There is nothing about the principle of homosexual marriage which could possibly lead to healthy offspring and children, which we have basically all recognized has been the historical function of marriage. So it goes against the principle and nature of marriage as an institution itself.
So wait, the function of marriage was to allow people to have children?
Marriage wasn't like always just like, oh, we love each other and we're going to get along and spend our lives together and go travel. Marriage.
You realize that people outside of wedlock had children throughout all of history, right?
I mean, sure. But that's, again, I'm not saying that that's the only way that people can have children. I'm saying that that's the main
Then
function of marriage.
but see, like, this is the problem that you run into every single time that you talk about this talking point, that it's because there's no offspring. This is an inherently immoral action, right? The parts don't fit, which, yes, they do. If you've ever had anal sex, you know that a penis can fit inside of an asshole, right? So just because something is not for the sole purpose of recreation, right? That means that anybody that has sex in a marriage, right, is immediately going to hell if they're not trying to immediately have kids, right? And even the church recognizes that there is some kind of there is something more to the act of engaging in that kind of romantic embrace, that there's something more to it than just having children. So even the church wouldn't even argue that having sex with your spouse for the purposes of or for not for the purposes of reproduction would be immoral, right? So like every single way along.
Okay, so
this-
all I'll say about
yeah.
this, all I'll say about this is that I think when this person is talking about marriage, they're talking about the Western institution of marriage, and that's something that leads to the best outcome for children statistically. Again, it's something that's been promoted since ancient times for a reason in the Bible. And just on top of that, the last note would be, it's I hope everyone notices when you see atheists making arguments like, well, you said that something's kind of not as good, so everyone goes to hell if they're not doing that. And it's funny. It's kind of like a meme how people see our view on morality, or maybe it's just dishonesty. I'm not sure, but people can decide for themselves.
Sure, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic. I don't think that blows my argument out of the water, though.
So we're gonna take a few more questions, and then we are going to shut it down. From Ariel Fernandez, he asked. He also wanted me to pull up another question as well, so I'm going to get to that after. But he said, for Miyo, did you become a Christian before you became Christian before you be? I'm guessing before or after you became a groyper.
Yeah. So I became a Christian after I became a groyper. Actually. I was an atheist for the vast majority of my life, and I was exploring secular philosophy. I was arguing with Christian friends, debunking all their arguments. What about this atrocity in the Old Testament? What about this one time where this bad thing happened in the Bible? I got you, Christian. I was one of those people, and I started researching history, and it was. I became a groyper when I saw Nick Fuentes debating with Sargon and Destiny and Hassana B in the Trainwrecks debate. And I saw how dishonest the lefties were being. And I saw how Sargon was kind of, just leaving himself out of issues because he didn't want to argue against the lefties and be called all the mean names that they like to call us nowadays. And Nick Fuentes was just speaking the truth and the facts as best as he could. I saw the lefties like Destiny start asking him questions like, how do you feel about race mixing? And then trying to distort his answers and get him banned for his answers to the nastiest questions that they could think of. And that campaign was successful. And he got banned on Twitch after that debate for that interaction. And that's when I realized, maybe this guy's opinions are worth listening to. He's the one that you're not allowed to hear. And I started listening to him alongside, all the neocons that I listened to, Ben Shapiro and the IDW or whatever. And at some point, I started researching history more and more. And then I started reading the Bible as an ancient history book. And the more that I looked into these stories, the more I realized that there's something more to it all. The people who wrote these manuscripts 2,000 years ago, people don't write things like this anymore. Almost no one has at all in all of history. And these people had clearly tapped into something. And so that's when I started taking it more seriously. Sorry, it's a long-winded answer, but it's a serious question.
Yeah, no, it's good. Okay, and this is what he wanted to ask earlier when his super chat. He's asking about, did you know that George Borjas is an immigrant from Cuba?
Yeah, actually I did. And it's interesting because This is one of the only reasons why why we can get away with using this study is because if George Borjas was a white guy who was like born in America, he would be called a white nationalist and discredited.
No, okay, look, I didn't know that he was an immigrant, but at the same time, no, he wouldn't be called a white nationalist. He's a well-respected economist. Even you
happened
realize
to a
that
lot of people.
you realize that there are non-white people that are called racist for being racist, right?
Sure.
Okay, then why the fuck did you say any of that?
Well, because there are a lot of people who are getting discredited and losing their jobs over being called these names. And it's you can only it's a lot more effective to
Do you
call
think
a
that
white
just being
person a
called
white
those names?
nationalist
Hold on, really quick.
than
Do
to
you think
call
that just
a
being
Cuban
called those
immigrant.
names is enough to get someone fired, or do you think that they have to exhibit some kind of negative, outward negative opinion
You
or
mean like
action?
putting out a study which is anti-immigration?
That wouldn't. No, you have
Some
no idea
people
how
might see that
academia
as
works.
negative.
You have no idea how academia works.
All right, we
It's a
can leave.
peer-reviewed study. It got released.
We can leave. I knew he was an
Let's move
immigrant.
on.
Yes.
Okay, so from G. Sneed to Sondsol, open borders for Israel.
Open borders for Israel. I think that the Israel situation, Israel-Palestine situation, is super fucked, and I would eventually hope to get to a point where they could have open borders for sure. There would have to be all sorts of things that changed in terms of the way that those two, well, I was going to say countries, two peoples interact with each other, but nations. Well, technically Palestine isn't a nation, but it technically is. Ah, fuck.
Well, a
Anyways,
nation is a people. I'd say it's not a nation state.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, one last point.
You're going to have closing statements still, you
Okay,
guys.
all right.
So you guys will have if you guys want to hop right into your final thoughts and closing statements. Maya, did you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Well, for my closing statement, I'd say that this was pretty much what I expected. I expected a lot of personal attacks and name calling. I expected him to come right out of the gate, talking about white nationalism and racism and all of that stuff. As far as the immigration debate, he says that I couldn't get out of the weeds with it, but it's really just we couldn't find anything to agree on. Even just the fact that the native-born population's dying out in America of every ethnic group is a problem that should be addressed, and not be just addressed economically, but that the prosperity of these people, so that their future generations exist, is something that needs to be addressed all on its own, regardless of the economic effects of it. And so I would say that, and I would say that what America First stands for is we recognize that the demographic change here is happening. We recognize that it comes with radical changes, and we're asking questions about whether each of those changes is good. On top of that, we are for social conservatism and Christianity. We're against things like the chemical castration of James Younger, LGBT curriculum in schools, pornography, drug abuse, divorce, drag queen story hour, all of that stuff. And we're against special interest in the government and dual loyalty in our politicians. We're against these multinational corporations, the military-industrial complex, foreign lobbies, all having more control over our politicians than our voters have. Those are the three main points of the America First platform as I know it. And as far as we're concerned, what we want is what's best for the American people, all of them. And we just want to see the American people prosper, not the regime, not the corporations, the businesses, or foreigners, anyone else. We want to put America first every time, always, before everything else, and not one single exception.
All right, thank you. Sondsol?
I really love how throughout this debate, I tried to understand in what way being America First was going to help anybody economically. But throughout this debate, all that was demonstrated is a complete and total lack of understanding of basic economic concepts like supply and demand, and of labor being a resource. I was also unable to get Mr. Miyo over here to demonstrate why it would be a bad thing to have any immigrants come into this nation. We didn't get to any of the other points that he just brought up there at the end, but notice how he doesn't like to bring up the fact that he couldn't answer for any of these problems. None of the actual issues that are affecting Americans today would be answered by any of the things that he brought up. In fact, they would be made worse for it. The idea that there's a dichotomy between helping out the natural born citizens of this country and accepting immigrants into it so that they can become naturalized citizens is absurd, and it is not borne out in any data, and again, was not able to be disproved in any way, shape, or form. I still maintain the idea that America First is one of the most internally inconsistent ideologies that is in the United States today, and it was not, my opinion was not changed whatsoever. So.
All right. Well, I would like to thank you guys both for coming on. This was a fun debate. I knew it would be. We do have the poll up for you guys in our community section on the YouTube page, so you guys can go vote and tell us who you think won. Leave a comment with the reasoning. Make sure it's constructive criticism and not the asshole comments that have been in the chat the whole night. But tomorrow night we have a panel at 9 p.m. Eastern. We're gonna have 4 surprise topics that have been picked by our guests. Our Saturday debate has been moved to next Sunday, so I'm actually going to be going on to Stardust's channel on Saturday. But yeah, thank you guys all for coming on. This was fun. Miyo will be back next week with another debate. So you'll catch him here same time. Other than that, Todd, you got anything before we close this down?
Nope. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it, guys.
All right. Good night.